Oh, I wonder who that could be.
Hey, what's up?
Whoa. Okay, we need to do that again. Come on in. Come on in.
Hey, what's up?
Hey.
Got lost in your building a little bit.
Wow, this is really smooth entrance, you guys.
Brought some wine.
I think that was very impressive the way that we did that in one take too, with all of our own props and everything.
I feel like just like I'm at home.
If you don't fake it, then you're cool.
Testes, 1, 2.
Hello,
3.
Governor.
Testes, testicles.
Testicles.
Testicles. All right. This is painting everybody again. We did some false starts several times. This might be another false start. That would be okay if it were.
We learned a little. We laughed a little.
Yeah.
It's getting better every time.
So this whole episode should take about 6 takes, I believe, just because that's when you know you get a good one.
3 days later.
And then you throw away the second 5 takes, and you use the first take after all.
Yeah. Yep.
I need to get one of those little clipboards so you can write down which take it is.
Yeah.
That would be ideal. Time is 12:34.
I don't know. I have one at home.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I got it from my uncle because he worked in Hollywood.
It's like a marking thing or something?
Did you say he worked in Hollywood?
Yeah. So he did audio and stuff on motion pictures.
Well, I hope that this audio comes out well today. The microphone's nice.
It looks nice, yeah.
It says Shure or something or other. And as far as I can tell, this painting ought to come out nicely too.
Yeah, sorry I don't have any more like interesting attire to paint. I was like looking at my closet, it's like black t-shirt, black t-shirt, black t-shirt, like it looks like it's black t-shirt.
I almost wore one too. So.
I've got just the remedy.
Oh yeah?
Yes, just down behind your chair is a prop basket. So if you feel inclined to use that, you're so welcome to, but
Okay.
I don't even think you need to. That's just a funny little.
Get the horns out.
Yeah.
That is so up to you. Yeah.
See how it goes.
I don't want to influence.
Maybe
that
when I'm not
a
on
little
close up.
bit. Yeah, I don't even want to influence that a little bit, but that's there.
Cool. Good to know.
Okay.
Yeah, I was hoping my daughter would pick out my outfit today, but she was kind of having a tantrum this morning.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. What was the tantrum about?
Oh, that's a good question. Never can quite tell. I think that there was some argument between my son and my daughter about one of them had a slightly larger treat than the other. So one had like a Coke ice pop and the other one was going to have a bigger ice cream bar. And so that was not going to work out. So we gave her a Jolly Rancher. Those were sort of approximately the same size. Still not quite equal enough for them. So they're very keen on fairness. Fairness is a big thing for kids.
That's good. They'll learn that's not something they should get used to.
I know, yeah.
But,
I tell them life's not fair a lot, and they don't seem to care.
It's becoming more and more fair, though, by force. So that'll be a good future maybe for them. They'll have some more fairness in the world. I don't know if that's true. Probably not true at all.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see.
How old are your kids?
They're 4 and 7. So
Okay.
Molly is 4 and Rick is 7.
Cool. Young Rick?
Yeah, he's Richard the 4th, actually.
Oh, wow.
I'm Richard the 3rd.
Cool.
Which is,
I did not know that.
Richard
yeah?
the Third.
Yeah.
So,
That's dope.
yeah, my dad liked Shakespeare, so he named me after one of the best Shakespeare villains. So
That's incredible. Can you tell me something about Shakespeare's Rick?
About Richard III? Yeah, so I mean, so he just wanted to rule England, so let me see if I can remember the story correctly. I'm going to embarrass myself. But he killed, I mean, he was a historical figure, so Shakespeare just based him off the historical figure.
Yeah.
And he killed I think they were his nephews. There's some debate, I guess, historically whether that happened, but I think it's widely agreed that he killed his nephews so that he could be king, basically. And he wouldn't have to deal with them one day coming back to steal his throne.
That seems like a common story. That's the Saturn, right? Myth. And he devours his son.
Oh, right, yeah. So
The gruesome one.
Yeah, although they broke back out, so I mean, it was turned out all right for Jupiter and all the other gods in the end.
Yeah. Do you know a lot about mythology?
Probably more than the average person, but not a lot.
Do you attribute that to, or that interest to your profession? Do you find there's a lot of
No, I don't think so.
history in the language? Is it scientific language? Seems like it refers to a lot of Latin or something, doesn't it?
Yeah. Physics less than other stuff,
Oh, yeah?
Medicine and biology, it's filled with Latin terms, but physics, we don't use Latin that much.
Okay.
Although I did start trying to learn Latin about 6 years ago, and I'm really bad at languages, so
Yeah.
I've been doing it, here and there, and my Latin is pretty horrible. But it's really neat to actually read an old author where, something that was written 2,000 years ago by Caesar, for instance, and you get to read his actual words. And I mean, it's funny, you hear people compare something like Trump to Caesar or whatever, and you just realize just how wildly inaccurate that is just by actually reading Caesar. He's a very, eloquent writer and certainly full of himself, but...
Good guy, or what?
Ooh, I wouldn't say good.
Solid dude. Great salad.
That's true. Yeah.
That's really cool. I can't pick up languages. I don't know. I just don't have the discipline to sit down. I've kind of absorbed some Spanish just from working in kitchens and in restaurants for so long. But if I were to try to speak it, it would just come out bad. But I can pick up little things here and there.
That's good.
Yeah, much more useful in Latin, that's for sure.
Yeah.
What have you done in kitchens?
In kitchens?
Yeah.
Not a ton. Mostly I've been a bartender for most of my career.
Right.
When I was in college, I worked in a restaurant as a waiter, and that kind of was like a neighborhood joint in Forest Park, which is out west, end of the Green Line at the Harlem stop. Really fell in love with the environment and the people that I worked for, and just liked spending time there. And I would just watch the guys in the kitchen.
Did they know you were watching them?
Yeah. I mean, we were just hanging out, and so just through watching them, some days I would come in if they were short-staffed and help out on the salad and dessert station. So mixing up the salad and or slicing pieces of cake and making brownie sundaes, shit like that.
Sure.
But that was really the extent of my getting my hands dirty in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Until I briefly worked at a place called the Aviary.
Oh, cool. I've never been there, but I know of it.
We should go, dude.
Yeah.
We should go get some
It's
cocktails.
actually out of my price range.
That was
From what I hear, those cocktails are pretty atrocious. Those prices.
They do. It is a luxury. It's a luxury commodity type thing.
Is that one of those things you better be making a business deal or having sex that night, otherwise you're gonna feel terribly guilty afterwards?
A little bit, or terribly hungover because
Yeah.
they throw a lot at you. But that was I'd been bartending once I became 21 and could legally bartend. I started getting behind the bar at that restaurant, and then I learned about this whole world, and I ended up getting a job there. And it was going from a shot in a beer bartender to basically they treat you like a line cook there. So that was very challenging, and I honestly did not fare that well because it was just I was like a fish out of water. And I was there for a couple of months, and that was the end of that. But it was a great experience, great levels of discipline.
What sorts of things do they do with the cocktails there? Since I've never been there, I've been told they're crazy and they have all sorts of
Yeah, I mean,
unorthodox, not unethical.
I've never heard of this place before. Could you set the scene a little bit?
Oh yeah, so kind of came. I mean, I think they're almost 10 years 10 years old now. They came around. It's the same group as like Alinea, the restaurant.
Okay, yeah.
So like the molecular gastronomy type of, deconstructing something and then building it back up through like using scientific, separating solids from liquids and things like that, freezing things that you shouldn't be able to freeze, like considering, flavoring ice, using vapors and smoke and, really anything that they can get their hands on to kind of create a new experience for people. And that was like what I really took away from it was like deconstructing the experience. So like anytime, like down to like the very last element, they had reconsidered like when you walk in the door, how are you greeted? What is the experience like? So it was so much detail, and that kind of really blew my mind. But it was also just like you're working in like a proper like kitchen brigade. So I had a station. I was responsible for like 6 cocktails on the menu, and I just prepared those every day. And it was 4 of us on a line, and you'd get called out, 3 of these, and here's a cocktail inside of a sphere of ice that gets broken tableside, and the ice becomes sphere, or the inside becomes it's this a little bit of like theater to it, but it was like right at the beginning of my like kind of exposure to that world of like higher end bartending and cocktails.
Movement group bartending.
Yeah, exactly. And it wasn't like you were behind a bar because there's no guests in front of you. You're basically like just producing things that go out in a tray to this like void beyond where like people are dining and drinking. And then there's like this big cage almost, and people can walk up and like watch you work, and they're like taking pictures of you. You're almost like a
zoo.
Yeah. So it was really cool, but it was also very intimidating, and I was definitely a fish out of water there. But also like after I left, I was pretty like being able to say you work there for any period of time will open a lot of doors for you.
Wow, that.
And so I took advantage of it, but I'm sure they talk a lot of shit about me over there because
Everybody talks shit about former people anywhere. That's just how it goes, I think.
Yep. So yeah, it was really cool, and definitely worth looking into. But I don't know if there was physics in what we were doing, but
It's
something.
possibly, like distilling stuff and
Sounds like thermodynamics if you're using whatever liquid nitrogen or something.
Yeah.
To freeze something.
Yeah, I actually froze a couple of my fingers. Liquid nitrogen. It's not good.
When I was 16, we had it in a chemistry class, and I don't know why. Like, I was just under the impression that they would never give kids dangerous stuff to play with, and so I just stuck my hand in there, and it was fine. And it surprised the chemistry teacher that it was fine because everyone sort of thought it would freeze my fingers off. But I guess there's this phenomena where the liquid just immediately boils next to your hand and creates a little insulating layer, which will keep you safe for like a few seconds. So I got very lucky.
It's kind of like passing your hand through a flame. If you move quickly, you can be in and out without hurting yourself. But,
yeah, that's pretty crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So was that your introduction to science that made you sort of interested, or like what made you decide to take that life path?
Oh, it's a long story. I mean, I first got interested in physics. One of my friends, Kyle Behrens, gave me like a book on cosmology when I think it was maybe 6th grade, maybe I was 12 or something. Mm-hmm. And I just read about how they basically knew what things looked like 15 billion years ago when the universe was first created, how everything was like just hydrogen and helium and nothing else. And I was just blown away. They gave like all the arguments, how they figured all that stuff out. And, I had been to like Sunday school and stuff before, and like that's not the way the presentation works there. It's like, and I was just astonished that they could just give evidence and explain how they knew everything they knew, and they could justify it. And so I really liked that. And then as I got older, I actually didn't know what I was going to do when I went to college, and I thought physics. Went to see a professor there, and I'm like, can I do some research? I really am interested. I want to start, contributing and seeing what research is like. And he's like, oh, you're a freshman, you can't really do anything. Like, come back in a few years. And then I just was like not interested in physics after that. Like I thought that he was like representing the discipline.
Bullied out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I thought anyone would say the same thing. I mean, if I had gone to another person, I'd probably like could have gotten a position in a different lab, but I was just like, oh, forget this. Like, and I just did a lot of drugs for a few years, and I went and got a political science degree, and
See, that's the problem.
And then I realized I'm not that good around people, so I'm like, okay, I need to go back and do something where I can just do math and not have to interact with people.
Not
so
math.
much. Math,
Got
yeah,
it.
exactly.
Never did math. I heard you correctly.
Never did math, though. I drew a line somewhere, No math, no crack.
No, you drew a line of math. Or at math.
Yeah. Around the math, that's like break in case of emergency.
So do you focus on a particular part of physics? Is there like a specialized...
Yeah, so so I mostly teach. Like, I'm not a tenure track professor, so I'm not like at the highest level. So my focus is mostly on just teaching physics. So, but I still do research, for depending upon the week, maybe just a few hours, maybe more. But I do work in quantum foundations. So quantum mechanics is, the current best theory of like how matter behaves, and it's easy to predict with it and make predictions. If you want to say, oh, what's the properties of a silver cluster of atoms going to be, you can do that, but the fundamental meaning of the theory is still obscure. It's been around for 100 years now, so people have been arguing over how to interpret what it's saying for a long time, like, because it says weird things like, is there some connection that's going faster than light? That could be one interpretation, which people don't like that idea. Can things really be like in multiple places at the same time, or
what do you mean people don't like that idea?
So Einstein came up with the theory of special relativity that says basically, the speed of light is sort of a universal speed limit, and nothing can go faster than that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a very successful theory. And with that theory, if you allow things to go faster than light, if you assume that there's something out there that can, then you can come up with all sorts of like causality paradoxes. Like, you can basically, kill your grandfather kind of stuff.
And if you can go faster than light, kill your grandfather.
If you can go faster than light, you can effectively, there's ways then to use that to go back in time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so
we're actively trying to figure that out, or we have figured that out, and that's what UFOs are.
I wonder what UFOs are. It's a real big mystery. Now that the government has come out with all that stuff, it's definitely something crazy. Is it aliens? Could be. I don't know.
I had a theory that's backed up by really hard evidence. Really serious stuff. Serious study on my part.
I want to hear it.
So I think I came up with the theory with someone else in the past. It was suggested that they were time machines, time travelers, and it was us from the future coming back. And I thought, if that were the case, it's obvious that they're fact checkers. They're just here to observe and say, whether something was a fact checker or not. And maybe they go back to the future and they write a blog or something.
Yeah, right. So people are sitting around
like
a car. They're like,
crushing the fake news of the future.
Yeah.
We went back and checked it. Yeah. We checked the tapes.
So that's why they're never interacting, and that's why they're only observing and then running away. And then that happening through all of history, more or less, as according to Ancient Aliens TV show.
Yeah.
Who's very serious, by the way. That's obviously very, very real stuff.
It's as good of a theory as aliens, for sure.
Yeah. So if that were the case, I think that would be the best way for them to fact check without affecting history in any way, since we've always had this paradox, or this sort of not paradox, this mystery, where we don't know what these objects are, and they've dated back through all of history that in art that we find, and everywhere that we look in ancient history, there are these sort of
unexplained things.
So we can just easily draw a straight line to that. I think that is definitely time travelers fact checking. Just want to make sure we all agree on this.
Pretty airtight. Put a pin in it.
Got it. Okay. So we're done talking about that now.
It's the problem with being too intelligent is you can come up with really good explanations for things, and then you start to believe them just because it's the best explanation that you've ever seen, and you haven't seen anything that could contradict it, and so, well, it must be true.
That's true. And
So-
people who believe they're really intelligent, also the same thing.
Ah,
when
yeah.
that happens.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
may
Yeah.
be even worse, yeah, for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, even, like Kurt Gödel and like, Charles Nash and like a lot of like real famous mathematicians just like went off the deep end, like, paranoia and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I'm sure. That must be so alienating to have that specialized knowledge. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's worse than being Kanye West. I think that's to be, at that
Yeah.
performance level in the mathematics or something.
Yeah, because there's just such a wide range of like ability. Like I'm really good at math, better than almost everyone I know. But still, like compared to some of these guys like Gödel and like Grothendieck, it's like von Neumann. Like those guys are so far beyond me. I mean, they could do in like a few weeks what probably I'll accomplish in my entire lifetime in mathematics. It's, to think that there are people out there with that much ability, like what it would be like to really analyze stuff. I mean, it must be a very strange way to live, and so.
Right. I mean, what's a contributor to that sort of decision-making process for so many? Is autism a common trait to find in the professionals in that field, or?
Oh, I don't know. I mean,
like, to what extent is autism, existing in the professional worlds that we live in of high-performing specialists? I wonder.
Yeah.
Because it seems like that as a trait could be very positive for a lot of professions. As it appears on the functionality of it.
I mean, there's a spectrum, right? So, but certain
Yeah.
aspects of autism,
Yeah.
I'm sure, like, and probably people, I don't know if the field of, analyzing psychological disorders and stuff is, where physics is. And so
Sure.
what we call autism now, I'm sure in 200 years, we'll have a much better idea of what that
Right.
really is and how it breaks down.
Those were the leaders.
Yeah. And so, but yeah, I'm sure there's aspects to it that, are really beneficial to doing something like mathematical thinking.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
probably.
Do you like need to be on pen and paper to do math, or do you have like?
I have to write it out.
Yeah.
So I mean, I can do a little bit in my head for sure, but
It's not like a Beautiful Mind where he's got
no. I always see that stuff and I'm like, that's not me. There may be people who can do that, but that's I definitely don't have like the little circles and triangles and the equations floating around.
Yeah,
I'm
no.
thinking,
This is coming from someone who's like terrible at math, so I'm just curious. Like I always admired people who could like really understand that stuff. I was the guy. They always say like there's like geometry people and there's like math people. It's like two different sides of the brain. I really I crushed it in geometry and then I failed algebra like twice because I was goofing off and doing drugs.
Yeah, and I mean you see that even amongst,
Drugs killed my math too.
Killed my math.
It really did.
So, when you get high, it's hard to do math. That's for sure. It's not the state you want to be in. I've had some good ideas though, like as far as like proving theorems and stuff when I've been high.
Yeah.
It's just that you can't actually execute it and work it out to see if it works. Like you don't have the ability to get into the weeds, but just having like the inspiration, like to go down a certain path, you can have that when you're high for sure. So.
Okay. Right. So there was a little camera malfunction. I'm not going to leave that in because that's just. Well, maybe I shouldn't leave this in. I'm explaining.
Yeah, it'll be very confusing. Yeah, so, unless you do the
Kill your
Either
grandfather.
I'll cut
montage.
the scene where I fix the camera, or I'll cut this scene, but not both. Okay, moving on.
That's almost a form of time travel.
So what do you do now? You're a cook?
No, I'm a bartender by trade.
Okay.
So I've been working for the last probably 10 years. I've been bartending for like 16 years,
Okay.
But for the last 10 years in more of like the higher end stuff,
Mm-hmm.
the more kind of bespoke cocktails and doing all that. So I worked in some places in the city, coming up like learning the craft, and over the last few years I've kind of transitioned into more like operations oversight.
Okay.
The last thing I did in Chicago before I moved out to Denver prior to like 2 years before the pandemic to work out there, but the last thing I did in Chicago was open Revival Food Hall downtown, which is a big 20,000 square foot food hall right Clark and Adams, and I was beverage director there, so I had to coordinate all the different food vendors, alcoholic beverage options, making sure that things were delivered on time and they were invoiced properly for those things. But I also ran the central bar there, so I trained that staff, came up with the menu, pulled a couple of shifts behind the bar. And then over the last few years, I've kind of transitioned more into like designing bar programs, designing bar spaces, designing, concepts. So like, is it going to be like a dive bar? Is it going to be a luxury, fancy champagne spot? Is it going to be a juice bar? I've done a pizza place. So I just kind of bounce around now and go where the work is. I've got started my own consulting company right as kind of put it together over the pandemic because I had time, and I have a business partner in Colorado. I help him remotely, and I'm going out there first week of October to help them with a menu change into the fall season and check in with the staff, train people. I think ultimately the direction I'm going is like passing down my skills and knowledge to the next generation is like what I'm the most passionate about, which is kind of where I think we have a shared, like, it's teaching, you're teaching people a craft and giving people a skill like bartending. It's something you can take anywhere with you, you go all over the world. So I've been able to do that, and like there's people that, it clicks and, they just go off, and it's really cool to see them like have these substantial careers, whether it's working for a brand or running their own bar or doing all this stuff. So that's my focus these days, is like creating more, like the industry was got a lot of attention over the last couple of years about how toxic and crazy it can get, and my philosophy is like it doesn't have to be that intense. Like let's bring in more, let's be more hospitable to each other and kind of set a new course. So yeah, a lot of my work is just trying to just pass down my skills to people and give them a solid foundation. And like it's a craft, just like I'm sure like with painting, you never feel like you've mastered it, and you're always kind of taking the next step.
If you have that delusion, you're an asshole.
Exactly. And then you're faking it,
Well, unless you have actually mastered it.
Yeah.
You're like 80 years old.
Yeah. Which is like, but that's all subjective too. Like, I'm sure that 80-year-old person's like still, there's one thing that's like, oh, I can't get this right still.
Yeah, they're still learning.
They're still
the mentor that I learned from, he's probably around 80 now, I guess. And
Is that odd?
Yeah, Odd Nerdrum. He continues to learn. Everyone continues to learn. There were plenty of moments where it was just sort of like, I've just learned something from you. You just taught me something. Most of that was probably how to not select a student in the future.
That's important though.
Fulfilling a role in the grand design of things, for sure.
Which applications to avoid. But I think teaching is so awesome in that way. And I taught for a little while at the school in New York during COVID. It was, well, not during COVID, I guess COVID's not over in some ways.
Yeah.
A bunch of people at my job are out of, or are, at risk of it again, of passing it around. Someone's just at work. So.
I don't think it'll ever be over.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's as over as it'll ever be.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's like anyone who wants the vaccine has it, so.
But what I mean is I was working as a teacher over Zoom during the lockdown period. So that was my first time really teaching in that way, where I had to invent a class based on post-impressionist painting. And I'm not a scholar of post-impressionism, so it was the way that I approached that was as myself, and that was the way that I was teaching it, was taught by me. my take on how these people were painting in history, and how to emulate that today through a similar style, but not quite, but still through my lens. So.
So it was mostly you were teaching people how to paint?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was demonstrating techniques, and I was and the way that class changed the way that I paint and the way that I look at painting was astronomical. And it was this entire palette change that I'm working with. I'm working with totally different colors suddenly, because I've just made it okay by researching people who made it okay.
Yep.
And then teaching others that was the,
Yeah,
that's
there's
the way
always
that
so
this
many
is done.
holes in your understanding and things that you think you more or less know, and then you're like, well, let me look at this and make sure I got all the details, and you're like, oh, there's way more details than I thought. And
Oh shit, I'm becoming a fundamentalist. Like this is dangerous stuff. Like I'm starting to reject ideas that are way more suited to me than following one person's idea of what is right. And when you apply that to the crafts, it's like becomes pretty subjective. There is absolute value in classical technique of painting and in educating yourself on naturalism and understanding light and all the different aspects of the way that our sight works and our perception works. That's so important. Also, I think it's very important to throw some of that away when you're painting in the moment, to just kind of untrain yourself from what you've learned in the classical traditions in so many ways. And so many people try to do that, and then you have extremists who are like Picasso, and everyone likes to look at him as a poster child for how to sort of delete your. I would call him that for sure. I would say so. If he was classically trained to to try to devote his life to mastering the classical traditions of painting.
Okay.
That's in, I don't know, representing form in a realistic way, but also in a way that's poetic still. But I think he then sort of turned his back on that and then got utterly obsessed with himself. And I think that that's what made his career possible, was that he became so egomaniacal that he allowed himself to erase everything he had learned. And by the end, he was like a child again. And it was all an intentional act. So it was like this deception of himself and this sort of brainwashing of himself. And it's probably
like a correction.
Yeah. But him as an example, whether you choose to look at him as a cautionary tale or a role model, it's still a cool thing that happened in history, in my opinion.
See, I always feel like I didn't really appreciate art classes because it was almost always discussed at the level of like theme and meaning and importance and relevance. And, to me, if someone had just been like, oh, here's a perspective and here's how you would translate a 3D image into a 2D thing that looks this way, that's something that those technical details I might have been interested in. But we never got that, in art class in elementary school.
Yeah, they would just give you like this predetermined interpretation. They're like, this is what this means, and you're like, well, really, does it? Like, did the artist say that, or is it just like I went to school for creative writing, and there's like an entire field called literary criticism where people just write about other works of writing, and it's the most like insufferable shit I've ever had to read in my life. Like, it's just too, I don't know, it's like taking the fun out of something that's like, was created to be an experience, and to be like, to evoke emotions and stuff. It's just like turning it into this, like, almost like an equation, or breaking it down into like, these base components where it's like, you're kind of sucking the life out of it for me, I
get that. I think I would prefer that over what I hear most talked about when people deal with art history. I think mostly it seems like they're talking about the provenance of the work and who bought the work and who
Mhm.
traded that work.
Yeah.
Who the hell cares about those things?
Yeah. Well, I mean, now.
What were the art? Why do we care about that? We're not. I mean, most people are not active participants in that marketplace.
Yeah.
Why the hell is that all we talk about when it comes to historical art? Like, why don't we talk about the interior sort of lives of the artists?
Yeah.
Why don't we talk about
The people
why
behind
they
it.
were the way they were,
Yep.
and the fact that their temperament and their lifestyle is what informed their decisions on their brushstrokes.
Yep.
And why don't we talk about that? Why don't we talk about how is this actually applicable to people in society? We really only just bolster the sort of the marketplace's ego, or
Yeah.
not ego, but the marketplace's purpose of existence.
Well, I mean,
We're trying to keep the marketplace alive, and the secondary marketplace. Anyhow,
that's like the big thing now, right? Is the commoditization of art and
I got really
artisan.
lost the trail up there. I lost that one. But
People are like doing like investment companies where you can buy a piece of art or a piece of art or a
Yeah.
share in a fucking piece of art. I mean, you've seen this, right? I'm sure. Like,
Well, in your portfolio, you gotta have real
Yeah,
estate, you
they're
gotta
like-
have your stocks, your bonds, and your artwork.
and art, yeah. And they're like, it's a
Good.
good
I
investment.
like
Like,
doing that.
how do you quantify that? And then, yeah, it's very
yeah,
strange to
That's
me.
going to depend. And-
Art as a commodity is an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because how do you decide? I mean, whose paintings are worthy of investment and whose are not? I mean,
Yeah.
it's got to be mostly.
With living painters, with new art that's being made, I feel like it's mostly based around branding.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I don't know
makes
that
sense.
there's much else going on. So it's sort of mimicking a corporate kind of advertising strategy for a product, and it's not. It's not surprising that that's
Mhm.
happening that way. I guess it makes sense because the person's still alive. They can still, inform the public on what's happening and why it's happening.
Yeah. Well, I mean, does that happen
usually
for
they're just,
deceased
like-
artists too? Like people, someone has to own that art, right? And so they're trying to sell it. And do they do that sort of branding thing with people who have passed away? Like,
I guess so. I mean, look at all these different weird pop-up display venues, like the Van Gogh exhibition. That was
Like
with the projection mapping and
Yeah.
all sorts of like stand inside of a painting kind of idea.
don't read your
And
mushrooms.
pay this group of people who
Yeah,
who doesn't care the one bit about
I didn't.
Van Gogh and
did
his-
not go to that.
it's
Yeah.
horrible.
I went to that. It was kind of cool.
Tragic,
You know?
alienating
Yeah, I mean, it's
place.
just they show you paintings to music, you know, and it's on the wall. I mean, so it's big, you know. It's-
Yeah.
I don't know if it mattered that much that it was actually on the wall as opposed to like on a projector or something, but yeah, just having something occupy your whole field of view and
Yeah.
the music play. I mean, it was enjoyable, you know. I don't know.
Yeah, of course.
Did you do any drugs?
No, I didn't. Do a lot less now that I have kids around. So.
Yeah, that must affect a few decisions.
Buzzkills.
Speaking of buzzkills, I'm not working on my buzz at all.
No, dude.
What are we drinking?
This is an orange wine from Oregon. Pinot Gris, Muscat, and Riesling.
Mhm.
It's called Orange Crush. My friend sells this wine, so she'll probably be
Do you want
happy.
to hold it up?
Yeah, maybe I
Hi,
should try
Megan.
some. I didn't realize you were a bartender when you were.
Yeah, you want to grab me?
wine.
I'll grab you a glass.
Yeah, maybe in a little bit so after I finish this
Cool.
beer. I'm
Sure.
a little
Yeah, we're
hesitant
gonna
to drink
take
a
a
lot
break
of
in a little
wine.
bit, yeah.
Because I get heartburn from it sometimes, but
I'll save some of this.
This does taste like a spicy wine.
Spicy wine?
The citrusy.
Oh, yeah.
I can see heartburn being a result. Just a heads up.
yeah.
Not,
Yeah, I get really bad heartburn. I mean, I
Yeah?
take Prilosec every day. I have for like probably 14 years now. It's-
Yeah?
Holy shit.
I mean,
Wow.
I've got like all sorts of random digestive issues.
Is that from stress, or is that
I don't know.
genetic?
I
Do you consider yourself
I
a
don't
highly stressed
think-
person?
I have for periods of my life. Right now is not too bad. But yeah, even when I've tried to go off of it, when I've had been at relaxed periods like over the summer when I'm not working very much, and it just always comes right back. So, one time when I was younger, I started taking aspirin. My dad died of a heart attack when he was 53, And so I heard that, the studies, like if you take the aspirin every day, it's supposed to help with the heart disease.
Yeah.
And so I started doing that, and I think that might have been what did it, because I know that frequently causes problems with like your stomach if you take those sort of medicines like too much. So that would be my guess, but
Sure.
It could be genetics. Yeah.
Oh well.
Genetics.
What else can you say about genetics? But oh well.
Pretty much.
But CRISPR, what do you think about that? Do you know about CRISPR? Anything at all about it? I don't know anything except for what it alleges to be, or like alleges to be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
changing.
know that much about it, but yeah, apparently you can basically use these proteins, I guess, to go chop open DNA and put in substitute DNA wherever you want.
Right.
And so I don't know the details of how.
Sort of engineer.
Yeah, basically just build whatever DNA combinations you want.
Probably embryos, right? Probably the best place to start.
Yeah, I would imagine it wouldn't work too well on like a grown creature.
Yeah, unless we'll all become the Fly, Jeff Goldblum. One of the two, either Jeff Goldblum or the Fly will become.
It's just like putting a new paint
only
job on an old
options
car.
The CRISPR menu.
The Fly. Great film.
Yeah.
I barely remember that film. I saw it when I was a kid, and it disturbed me a lot.
Yeah.
So I sort of never went back because it was a little too scary for me. And
I'll probably do a rewatch. Yeah, I don't think I've seen it.
Yeah,
since
I watched it not long ago, and it's funny. I mean, it's better than I remembered, and it's funnier than I remembered. Like self-aware funny.
Okay,
really?
Like
I didn't realize that.
He's charming and it's funny,
Yeah.
and he's.
Cool.
Yeah, it was good. Cronenberg, right?
Was that
He
him?
made that, yeah.
Okay.
I watched his new movie,
I was gonna say.
Crimes of the Future.
I haven't even heard of that.
It's about pain management and how we have conquered the problem of pain. And because of that in society, we have all sorts of new fetishes popping up, like mutilation and bodies' abilities to sort of grow their own organs, and
Sounds good.
surgery as an elective thing and as a performance art and stuff. It was very Cronenberg, very classic, sort of returning to his roots,
Yeah.
I didn't think it was very good, but Viggo Mortensen was in it.
Okay, I like him.
Yeah.
It's weird to think of pain as a problem. I mean, it's
I know.
it can be when it's like very intense for a very long time. But
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
That's how you know you're alive.
You
right?
get old, you're just always in pain.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah,
I don't know if this is
I know.
happening to you guys yet, but there's always one part of
It is
my body
happening.
that's
My
just like
back is
always in pain.
messed up
Yeah, I've had
recently.
some
So
serious back problems too.
I've had to I think it was due to an actual purposeful action. It was purposely picking up some furniture.
Yeah.
But it was some kind of strain that caused this. Obviously, it's from that. It has to be, and it's just kind of been popping up. So I bought a little pack that I can wear that heats or cools, and I'm like, okay. It's actually helping me more than anything else did. So now I don't. Now I'm able to do things like touch my toes,
Okay.
which is very important. I think
Yeah.
everyone should touch the toes as often as they can.
Yeah, I couldn't do it for a really long time. Like from when I was a little kid to when I was like in my 20s, and until I started doing yoga, I could never do it.
Mm-hmm. And that was so easy when we were kids, right?
I've never really been good at touching my toes. Yeah, I have like notoriously tight like hamstrings. Even when I was in like elementary school and you do that like sit and reach thing.
Yeah.
I would always struggle with that.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
So-
when I was a kid, I couldn't touch my toes. It was
Yeah.
not until I was older, like, and I started
Yeah, I'd have to
stretching
like.
and stuff.
It would probably take me a year.
Well, I definitely.
I was actually surprised. It took me like maybe a few weeks.
Yeah.
Like maybe 2 weeks of doing yoga, like just for whatever
Well, I
So,
didn't
like,
mean to
14
brag
days.
like that. Sorry, guys.
What?
I didn't mean to brag like that.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, for me, the thing that's really helped with the back is like some physical therapy. I've also like started getting like massages at a physical therapy place like that. I don't know. Last November, I had like this 2-month period where I was just like in really intense pain every day. Like anytime I would just stand for more than 5 minutes or walk for more than 5 minutes, it would just be like, feel like someone was stabbing me in the back. And so I'm like, I don't want to do that for the rest of my life. I should probably figure it out. But physical therapy really helped. And so I do like these
Maybe it's
exercises.
a curse.
Could be.
Have you tried going to
I have a lot of students
spiritual healer
that I give bad grades to, so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, physics is notorious for
Yeah.
So maybe
for curses.
For giving students bad grades. So I probably have a lot of
students putting curses on teachers.
I would
Kids
imagine,
do
yeah,
there.
it's got to be one of the top professors to curse as your physics professor.
Or hexes, or what would be the cuter term? What would you prefer to call that? Hex or curse?
Oh, I'm sure there's a
choose.
technical difficulties
You could
or
choose.
difference between those two, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Yeah, have to consult an
I don't
expert.
think I've never cursed anybody. Never put a curse on anybody or a hex.
I get unintentionally or accidentally. I must have had the intent.
I've sent
I
out
don't
like
think
bad
anything's-
mojo.
I don't know that anything's happened, but I feel guilty about certain like acting out of anger.
Yeah.
Like recently made a painting of an ex's new boyfriend, and it's like I shouldn't have done that. I was acting out of anger. I was rageful. I was drinking whiskey alone, and it was like,
Yeah, that's
why did I need to do that? It was like I'm an artist. I should do this as therapy. I should enact my anger and aggression in a physical form, and it's like, yeah, that's actually deeply disturbing to do that, and it shouldn't be encouraged. I think to traumatize, to re-traumatize yourself like that.
Yeah.
It was very silly.
Although maybe it's
So
good
I
that
didn't
you did
destroy
it. So
the
that
painting. I
you
didn't destroy the
realized,
painting, but I don't think that that's a painting I should put up anywhere. That's like a
It's the dark emotional bender. The
yeah,
dark emotional bender. You put that in a closet. It doesn't see the light of day.
yeah.
It happened. It's like you're going through those moments. And you're like, this is like my. You got that like main character thing. Like this is like the sad part of the movie where it shows me drinking a bottle of whiskey and chucking it against the wall and feeling so much right now.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's like society rewards those behaviors when artists exhibit them, and they're like, "Yeah, keep doing that.
Yeah.
Keep hurt yourself. It's like for us." And then
Cut your ear off.
yeah, and then you're just like, I painted this beautiful sunset. Like after that, and they're just like, unfollow.
You're dropping it.
The microphone's falling.
Okay, nice. Wow, so many
What a catch, dude.
difficulties here today.
You're just getting it all straightened out. So for the second.
This is that hex. This is the reverse.
Oh
hex.
yeah, that's what it was.
Well, they say
Just talking
anything,
about curses.
Yeah.
Bad magic, anything you do comes back to you 3 times over. So if you're
Oh,
casting a
so
curse on
this is
someone,
only gonna happen one more time then.
yeah.
Got it. Only one more technical difficulty on this episode then.
It's a physics lab. I used to work here.
Okay, here's the thing. If you have a resistor right here, you don't want current.
Now I spend all my time in this office and in conference rooms. I've got a computer, but most of my work happens in the chalkboard when I'm teaching students things like special relativity or in my notebook. And so I do various computations, proofs, etc. So there's what it looks like. Physics research.
Overdub something, and come back and just.
Sure. Yeah. We can do a whole episode of overdubs one day.
That'd be very
So
entertaining. You just have to make sure the people who are doing the dubbing are not the people who are in the episode.
Oh yeah, that'd
exactly.
be great.
Or they
Yeah.
could be each other. That would be funny. I've actually set up. Oh man, I'm trying to set it up anyway. Should I talk about this?
Is it too good? Too good to reveal right now?
Well, it won't matter really because I'm airing the episodes when I feel like it or when I feel they're appropriate.
Right.
So that's why I want to have so many in the tank,
Yeah.
like so that I can be like, all right, this is actually a better episode to follow this one with,
Mhm.
and that's what like I did with the guys from the restaurant. Was
Mhm.
like, this is obviously a better episode one than you know
Oh,
they're
that
so
wasn't the
high
first
energy
one?
and so
Yeah.
funny
Yeah.
that I was like, this is it's just funny and it's easy for number one, and you know I'll continue that. So I always want to be ahead of the project. I don't ever want to be sort of working week to week like South Park episodes.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
that's too much pressure, and I can't put myself in that position. It would be a bad idea. So that's why I'm trying to do 2 episodes on Sundays. If I can do one more during the week, that would be okay too. That way, if I want to take a month off, I can. You know, that's a good.
You just
place
want to
be.
keep releasing
Yeah.
every week, like
Yeah.
like clockwork. Yeah.
Well, until I don't, and
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's gonna hold it against me. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't
we
have
should
like a
take
loyal
breaks for
fan base yet.
yeah, breaks for holidays and stuff. You know, it's,
Maybe. I mean, 9/11. I'm doing 2 episodes.
oh, okay.
I don't know that that's a holiday.
Yeah.
Is it?
I don't know.
I wouldn't call it a holiday.
I-
Depends on who you're asking,
Yeah.
I guess.
I think it was we just did the 20-year anniversary. I think we can stop the annual like
Yeah.
day of reliving the whole thing.
It is
You
so
know?
weird having students who like have no idea.
Yeah.
Like, just like, you know, they're like, oh, I wasn't even born yet. It's like, right, like that was a weird day.
That was
Yeah, I
fucked up,
remember that.
yeah.
My history teacher was like, "Those motherfuckers." He said that in front of us, like when we were high
Wow.
school students.
Wow.
Or were we sophomores or something? But he, you know, he used that as his moment to be like, nobody's gonna tell on me. Finally, I can say motherfuckers in front of these high schoolers.
I'm sure that was his thought process. Like, I've been waiting for this my whole career.
Today's the day.
Thank God for terrorism.
I was actually talking to Ian about that
Uh-huh.
because we're doing a pop up at the restaurant
Mhm.
next Sunday,
Yeah.
and I was like,
Yeah,
"Oh,
that's
it's on
good.
9/11." And he was like, "Yeah." I was like, I don't really, think we need to go through the motions still." But he was like, him having lived in New York for a while, he's like, when you're there
Oh, yeah.
on that day, like it's a different feeling in the city. Like I totally get that, but like,
Yeah, but we're in Chicago.
yeah, we don't need to keep like. It's like it's like a weird like bad form of grieving where we just like relive this thing every year. And after last year, I was like, I'm not gonna do it anymore because I used to read all the articles about like
Mhm.
falling men, shit like
That's
that.
how you would celebrate?
Oh yeah. Reflect a little bit. It was, I was a sophomore in high school too. I think at that time I was in driver's ed
Mhm.
when that happened. And it's like, yeah, I don't need to do this at like for the rest of my life every year. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't usually do anything
No.
special for that day. I mean, no one I know. Like,
I've watched all
Luckily.
the documentaries and stuff and
Yeah.
all that footage, and you don't need to really see that every year. I feel like I don't know.
yeah, when it was happening, it was enough. I remember
Yeah.
my phone rang in the morning, and my friend's like, "Get up, watch the TV. We're at war." I'm like, "What? What's
Yeah.
going on?" It's like that was before the second tower had even been hit. And I
Yeah.
watched, and I turn on the TV, and I'm like, then you see the plane flying in on live TV. You're just like, "Is this is happening?" Like, yeah, it's nuts.
Hmm.
And I remember being worried. I'm like, oh, this is just the beginning. Like, a lot more people are going to die. We're going to have to go kill a lot of people now.
We're
Well,
still
so-
living in it. We're still living in a
So-
society that just changed it. That we're in like a surveillance state now.
Yeah, it was a good marker for that, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the surveillance state business, that's almost more us just wanting
To feel safe.
to use the internet.
Yeah.
Like Google's the one surveilling us. They're the one who's tracking our location everywhere we go. It's
Like-
it's not the United States government.
You had to bring that up in the next one.
Good call. I will try to remember that one. So the episode I'm airing on 9/11 it should be a fun one. So by the time this airs, it will have already aired anyway. but it will be the topless episode.
Nice. I remember you telling me about this.
Good choice.
And I think it'll never happen again.
The topless episode?
Yeah.
Or not?
I don't think I'll ever do one again.
Yeah.
I think that's the point.
Yeah.
There's a reason for it. There's a reason for never doing it again too.
The way you explained it to me, and I don't want to give anything away, but
Well, it'll already aired, so.
Yeah, it'll have already aired.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
No spoilers, yeah. No.
Well, it makes a lot of sense why you'd say that.
Yeah, it's fun. But it was difficult for me to be shirtless because I've had such shame around my bod.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I lost 40 pounds in the last year.
I
I
didn't
mean,
realize
so
that.
I'm like, now I'm just like, I feel fucking good.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
that's a significant transformation.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And I feel it reflected in the way that I, am seen in public, and yeah, the way that people see me and the way that people look at me, and like it's a nice feeling. I feel like myself again. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I lost a lot of weight over the last couple of years as well.
Yeah.
I was getting absurdly fat. When I was living out in Denver, I was like not healthy at all. Eating a lot of restaurant food, drinking a lot.
Is this over the pandemic or before?
This was prior, like I moved out there 2017 to 2019. I was out there.
Okay.
I was working an insane amount, opened 4 bars in 2 years, and was just not taking care of myself. And it started to feel like it was like physically painful, like I felt like a overstuffed sausage.
Yeah, and the face, you look different and all of it, right?
Yeah. I can show you pictures and stuff, but like I reached a turning point when it was like, you either need to buy a new wardrobe to accommodate your fat that's happening right now, or you need to get this shit together,
That's how it goes, yeah.
rein it in a little bit. So it was definitely like a little like, this is the turning point, and everybody struggles with it, but yeah, that was
Not everybody.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I've got one friend who was possibly going to be on today, but we're going to do an episode soon. He can eat anything he wants, and he's always been able to, and he's rail thin, and he's like 6'2" or 6'3" or something, and he just nothing seems to affect this guy's metabolism. It's insane that he's just got this sort of gift
Yeah.
that probably to him is a curse. He's probably just like, I just want some gains. I want to bulk up. You know what I mean? So, what one person's gift is another person's torture or something. But I'm just trying to be nice.
How old is he though?
Who doesn't want to be
Because,
thin?
Yeah.
That's
Sooner or later, the metabolism.
the same sort of phenomenon I find happens with having curly hair or having straight hair. And it's like people with straight hair wish that they had curly hair.
Mm-hmm.
Like I need to explain that after saying that sentence. Maybe I did. I don't know. But my hair is so curly, and I remember living in San Francisco, and people would ask me, what was the best, or what did you like about moving to LA over San Francisco? And I would say, I have way better hair in LA than I ever did in San Francisco. It was like, it would be, the fog that would roll in, the sort of moisture in the air.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes a big difference.
You just go out at night and you're like, oh, I look so cool. And then you're just like, oh, nope, clown wig. You can't.
Afro status. Yeah.
You can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
It's just sort of like you're subject to whatever nature throws at you in that city and everywhere.
Yeah.
And then people with naturally straight hair, anywhere they go, it's just sort of like, all right, wherever you go, you're pretty consistent looking.
You're there. Yeah.
Yeah. There you are. You show up and you look like you.
Yeah.
You look like you intended, maybe, unless you did something to your hair that won't stay in place or something. I guess it's exactly the same problem. Now that I'm talking about
This is my first time doing the long hair. This is
really?
a brand new experience for me. I grew it out during lockdowns and stuff. I was always clean shaven, like crew cut type, like Mad Men style.
Mhm.
Like when that was a whole fucking thing. And then I was just like, why am I gonna cut this? I'm not going out. Like everything was shut down.
Yeah.
I can't even go see my barber. I was like, fuck it, let's let it go. I was cutting it myself for a while, like just under and on the sides, and it was getting
That's the key.
really weird.
Find a way to cut your own hair.
I was not doing a good job. I was doing it by like feel, which is not the
Yeah.
best way to do it. But
I did that once. That's dangerous
yeah.
stuff.
How long did you live in LA?
4 years.
Oh shit, that's a solid run.
Yeah, it was enough to teach me a lot about myself.
Yeah. Do you like it out there?
I loved it.
I
couldn't believe how beautiful it was. I think the most common thing that you hear about LA from people, the most common complaint is that everyone's only interested in what you do and they try to suss out what your value is to them right away. And I'm just sort of like, that's kind of a complaint of the underachiever.
Yeah.
Like, who the hell cares what the underachiever thinks when it comes to that? Boy, that's quite a statement. I don't know if I stand behind that.
I was gonna say.
I mean, see that?
Who-
that
No,
kind of,
but
like,
I mean,
underachiever.
like, okay, so they're trying to suss out in a city that's
What can
that's
this person
prided
do
itself
for me?
on its high performers.
Yeah.
As they're trying to suss out who are the other high performers. How can I find people who are like myself? The city is incredibly alienating
Mm-hmm.
if you're a high performer and you're surrounded by people who are not.
Yeah.
So there's another side to that. It's not just gatekeeping as being the most evil thing you could possibly do. It's gatekeeping as sort of necessity if you are high performing.
Mm-hmm.
Because the people who you surround yourself with are typically the people who influence you the most.
Yeah.
And I think it's understandable that people are that way in a place where I can't even imagine the percent of transplants there to
Oh, God,
to
yeah.
native.
I mean, it's just got to be the industry more than anything, you know? Like, I went
Yeah.
out to LA, visited my uncle for 3
Jeez,
weeks.
do I even stand behind a single thing I just said? I feel like that was a lot of opinion-based stuff,
It's-
and I don't know if they're
It's
my
a very,
opinions.
like, microcosm
It
in
doesn't
LA that
fucking
does
matter.
that.
We're just
you know,
having a
which-
conversation.
Yeah.
I don't need to defend.
Because most people in LA, I don't know, my uncle,
Yeah.
you know, the people he was friends with, the people I interacted with, they're just normal folks, you know? It's like,
Yeah.
I went to LA, I'm like, the big thing I noticed is that there's no flying insects. I'm like, this was great.
That was
No
amazing.
screens. Like,
hmm
that was wonderful. But yeah, I mean, the people, like, I thought, just like anywhere else. But I mean, I wasn't hanging out with, you know, like, people striving to make it, you know, in Hollywood or anything like
Yeah.
that, you know? So it's, but in the physics community, like, I've gone to, like, physics conferences and you see that same sort of thing. Like, I remember talking to this guy, Bill Unruh. He's like, kind of a big name. He came up with Unruh radiation anyway. So I'm talking to him. I tell him, you know, I'm from Chicago. And he's very interested. He's talking, and he brings up Robert Wald, who's a big general relativity guy,
Okay.
but he's at University of Chicago, not UIC. And at this point, I'm like, no, I don't go to University of Chicago. I'm from UIC. And he immediately stops talking to me, turns away, starts talking to other people.
You know, I've heard of people doing that. I've experienced it a little bit.
Yeah,
Usually in nightlife or something, though. It's never in a thing in an area where it actually matters to me. Like, but that's the most horrible thing.
yeah. I was
Yeah.
like, just like, oh, I'm not at the right school, so now I no longer think I'm worth talking to. You know,
Yeah.
it's like I guess that's how people make judgments. You know, It's
Yeah.
like,
And it's not totally baseless either. Because you're just sort of like,
right,
a little bit of humanity would be nice in that interaction. You could probably exit in a more graceful way. You know?
Yeah.
I'm going to go have a cigarette. Or like, it's like, I don't know if that applies to that guy. But I think there are more graceful ways to exit a conversation than just turning away from someone and walking away like they are not even.
I actually, you know, I mean, I don't mind the.
Were you a student at the time?
Unpluggedness. Yeah, I was at grad school.
Okay.
So, it's like I wish people would, you know, evaluate other people more by the, you know, content or their character rather than like, you know, the schools on the resume. You know, it's like
That'd be nice.
judge people based upon their work, not upon, you know, what school I happened to
Yeah.
be at the time.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're-
but there is a justification there in that, the best people do tend to be at the best schools. It's like that's why they got admitted. I applied to University of Chicago. I didn't get admitted. Although that was because I'm socially anxious and I had an interview with Robert Wald and I was supposed to go there and talk to him and I just freaked out. I was like, this guy's too big. I don't know what I'm going to say. I'm too nervous. And I was like driving there and I'm like, I can't do this. And I just turned around and drove home. Like it was just anxiety. Like, and because I had a recommendation from the guy I was working for at the time to talk to this guy and that might have been my ticket in and I just freaked out.
Everybody's got those stories.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Damn. Yeah, that's. I had a chance to meet Moby,
Oh, really?
Sick, dude.
and it was the same sort of thing.
Oh, yeah?
Right, he was at this party that I was at, and it was an opportunity in my brain. It's not the same story. I'm just kidding. but it's not. But it was like, I could have walked up to Moby and said, "Hey, I really like your Animal Rights album. I've really scored a lot of my deeply emotional life moments to listening to that, and I didn't. I was with a friend, and he said, "You're gonna see Moby at other parties." And I was just like,
That's the worst advice I've ever heard.
That's
What an asshole.
Moby.
hilarious.
He's all over the place. Every other party you go to, you
Yeah.
can talk to
I
him.
was like, okay.
Can't get rid of the guy.
But yeah, when you're in that moment, you're just looking for an excuse, It's like,
Anything, yeah.
and
But
you're just
what
like,
would it have
oh.
led to? Nothing.
Yeah.
So I'm only joking when I compare it to your experience. But yeah, that sort of hesitation, and I listened to him because I was so anxious about it. If I had. Anyway, moving on.
What would you would have just said like I enjoyed
That's literally
the
all I would have said.
Animal
I
Rights
might have
album.
asked
Yeah.
for a selfie with him, but I think that I might have played cool and not asked for a selfie with him. You know what I mean? It's like that.
I always try to be like
There were so many things like
as
that.
chill as possible with celebrities, like
Yeah, I don't.
Like, I enjoyed
hate
your
being
work.
like that.
I enjoyed your work in this, and then that's the end of it. Like let's try not to be. I'm not gonna like fangirl or fanboy,
Have we?
fan they.
I guess, yeah. I don't meet celebrities enough to think about what I would do in their presence.
I stayed at Clint Eastwood's ranch and had lunch with him and his family.
Oh,
That was my biggest celebrity story that
That's
I
pretty
just
huge.
will not repeat, I'm sure.
Yeah.
That
What
was
was
the
it like?
funniest
What
one.
was-
So my friend Ryan Schultz had some contact with then Dina Eastwood, who's now remarried, and there was a divorce and stuff. But there were talks of like a family portrait that he could be commissioned to paint for the Eastwood family.
Mhm.
It was like, oh, that's awesome. He came to visit me when I was living in San Francisco, and he said, I've been in contact with Dina. She saw me on the show that I was on, The Work of Art, The Next Great Artist, which was a reality show on Bravo about artists, and it was this art competition.
Oh God,
Who do we want to
that
win
sounds
the most?
awesome.
Yeah. Who do we want to win the most, and who do we like the most, or whatever? Who has
Who
the
can we
best?
sell?
Who has the best relationship with the producers?
Yeah, who can generate the most money?
Yeah. So that show happened. They saw it. They contacted Brian. And when he came to visit me, I was just telling him, I was like, you would be an absolute moron if you didn't reach out to them and go down to Carmel to visit the family. I didn't have a car at the time, so he was staying with me, and he reached out to them, and they said, "Sure, drive down to Carmel, and you can stay at our sheep ranch, and we'll talk about stuff." So I wound up asking my friend if I could borrow his car. So I did that. We drove down there. We stayed with them. for 2 nights. That night we met his daughter Francesca. She was, I want to say, 16 at the time. It was pretty funny to meet that family and just be like, this is the most bizarre circumstances to meet. It had nothing to do with me. I couldn't have been more of a tag along. But it was so fun, and they opened up their golf course restaurant for us, and we just had lunch with the Eastwoods. Clint Eastwood he was 2 seats away from me, and he had split pea soup, and he just kind of made fun of artists. Just kind of like took the piss out of us and made fun of art, and it was funny. It's like, wasn't his idea. He was obviously just being there because he was asked to be or something. So that was my favorite story. I have some photos to prove that it happened, I guess.
That's cool.
But nothing really came of that for any of us. It's just that was a very funny celebrity story.
Yeah, it strikes me as very funny, like an actor making fun of art and artists.
Yeah, over a bowl of split pea soup. It's just like curmudgeon-y old man who's still like perfectly charming. It was very funny. I don't know what the point was for talking about that story. I guess we were talking about LA, so that was a very LA story to tell.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like it out there. I considered moving there, but like all my family's here. It just makes more sense to be here.
Where is your family?
Well, my both sides of my family are from the Chicago area. My parents live in I grew up in the western suburbs. I went to high school in Wheaton, and then my parents, once me and my sister graduated high school, they left. They live in like a beach community in Michigan City, Indiana. But the rest of my mom's the oldest of 12 kids, so I have cousins all over the city. We're everywhere.
12 kids.
Yeah.
Catholic or?
Oh yeah, Irish Catholic baby. Both sides. My dad was Irish Catholic too.
Okay.
So it's the whole like guilt.
There are a lot of Catholics on this show.
My grandma was Catholic, and her
Yeah.
husband was the first Richard DeJonghe was a Protestant, and so they actually made him like vow and sign papers that they would raise the kids Catholic, like in order for them to get married.
It's so
Wow.
crazy.
Yeah, religion was taken much more seriously back then.
Yeah, my grandparents were definitely very serious about it. I think my parents kind of saw through it a little bit. Like we didn't go to church as kids. After first communion, I was pretty much done. I never got confirmed or anything like that. But the vibes were still very heavy.
I don't think I understand what confirmed means.
Confirmed is like, so you get communion when you're like 8 or 9 or something, which is where you take the Eucharist, right? It's the symbolic body and blood of Christ that you consume.
It's
at
supposed to not be symbolic, though, right?
at a
That's what they
mass.
tell you, right?
Well, yeah,
Is the
because they bless
actual-
it, and then this like tasteless wafer is Christ's body, and it's like cool. Like could use a little salt or
Yeah,
something.
obviously.
But it was also like I think probably the first time I tried wine. Was that like shitty church wine? But yeah, like communion was very important, and then it kind of dropped off. The confirmation takes place when you're like a teenager, so I think like 8th grade, freshman year of high school. I might be getting this slightly off.
Yeah, I didn't do it, but I
Yeah,
have friends.
I won't be able to tell.
Yeah,
But you
sounds
like
about right.
you have to like reaffirm your dedication to the religion, and you take another name on. So you like add a name, like a middle name usually. You like pick your favorite saint, and then you just tack that on your name, and it's like part of the process. But I never went through that.
It's kind of a nice idea for a religion where it's like, okay, you're now old enough, you actually have to say, I actually do believe in this.
Yeah.
Like, you don't just sort of just get railroaded.
They do that?
Yeah,
The
that's
Jehovah's
the
Witnesses do that
confirmation.
too.
Well, I don't know, like how many kids said no. You know, like it was just like something you're going to go through. If your
Yeah.
parents, signed you up for the class, you got to do it.
But there's no consequence if you decide that you're just like, I'm done with this.
There was, I mean, it depends on I think your family structure and how important it is to like
Okay.
your
So it's
family.
not like
But
you're signing a contract that will get your family to ostracize you and like stop eating dinner with you and stuff.
Is that how the
possibly
Oh,
in
yeah.
some other families, possibly, but
not
not
good.
in our family. The second generation after our grandparents kind of like loosened up a little bit about the religious stuff.
Mhm.
I still have like aunts and uncles and cousins who are like very much involved in church in some way, even if it's like Protestantism or other offshoots of Christianity. But yeah, the Catholic stuff is a lot, man. Like and for example, my uncle passed away 2 years ago, maybe 2.5, 3. But he devoted his life to the church. He was in the Archdiocese of Chicago for 30 years, and so when he passed away, his funeral was conducted by the Cardinal of Chicago. All of the
Wow.
bishops came out and all their stuff, and like it was a huge thing, and like that, it's very much like a spectacle in a way. Like this is so like
As a funeral should be.
it's they got the incense going and these guys are all in robes and stuff and they're sometimes they're doing Latin and it's just like, all right, like this is like a 3-hour long stand kneel and I'm just sitting there like, all right, this is something else. It's unlike anything I'd ever seen before. But yeah, like Catholicism, you still get like this. They call it like the Irish guilt or the Catholic guilt, and that's something I feel like.
Do you have that
Oh yeah.
as we speak?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my wife is Irish and she talks about that all the
Yeah,
time.
it's like you should be doing more, or like your grandma. Like my grandmother passed away a few years ago, and she was like, I went to school for writing. She's like, when are you gonna write the novel? I'm like, I'm never gonna write a fucking novel. I'm never. It's like that's such a
Man, I
monumental
could use
task.
some of that guilt.
Yeah.
Damn. Sounds like good stuff.
Well, it's like very much like compartmentalized. Like, oh, you went to writing school, so like the only way for you to be a good writer is to be a great American novelist. Like, okay, well, that's like pretty heavy, and I just graduated, so I don't really have any life experience, and it's
Yeah,
hard
that's
to write
cool,
about
man.
the world,
I've
when
never
you-
heard that perspective on Catholic guilt. Always only heard it as a negative. Even if you're talking about it as a negative, I'm only hearing the positive aspect.
Yeah, well, it's like, it's like a measuring stick,
Yeah.
like, oh, you should be doing this, you should still be doing this, you're not doing that, like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, maybe you should feel bad about it for a little bit.
Cool.
And you kind of like figure out your own way to reconcile
That feels
that.
accurate in my worldview.
No. Yeah, I mean it's
I mean, to a reasonable extent.
it's a little bit of like, the furrowed eyebrow and like, oh, you're not doing the way you're supposed to do it. Like, okay, we'll see how that works out for you.
I mean, the
I'll pray
opposite
for
is-
you, that type of thing.
The opposite is so bad. So bad.
Like
The lack of expectations.
yeah,
The sort of like the acceptance of a life unlived
yeah.
is that could be worse.
So, I mean, a
Those
lot
are-
of daylight between like writing the great American novel and having a life that you didn't even live. Like,
Yeah.
there's space in between there. Like,
No,
maybe you
there's
can
no
find
Right in the
space
sweet
between
spot,
it. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, the scope is helpful, but I appreciate that take on it. I've never heard that outlook, or I've never heard that angle of the Catholic guilt, where I could think of it as an outsider in a positive way.
Positive wouldn't be the word I would use at the end of the day. I mean, it wasn't never like wasn't like a destructive force in my life, but
Hmm. No, I hear that.
I rarely think of it in positive.
Of course.
Yeah, it's just like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, guilt, you
Like
know,
a stressor, you know?
You can think like it should be motivational, it should allow you to achieve better things, but it doesn't seem to actually
No,
work that way
it
most of the time, like, even if that's the idea.
Yeah, it doesn't function. Of
It's like,
course.
yeah, there's better ways to motivate yourself and to achieve things than
Yeah.
guilt is probably not the...
Like holding someone down and yelling in their face, like you might achieve some things.
Yeah, like positive and
But I don't know
adverse.
if it's
you know?
worth it.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
Yeah, like yelling at kids, you know, you think you're going to get them to do something, but
Oh man.
it's like,
Yeah, what's that like? How do you avoid doing that?
well, you just don't some of the time. Like,
You don't avoid it?
yeah, I mean, you try when you can, but but yeah, sometimes you just don't. You know, it's like I would, you know, of course, before you start parenting, you're like, you know, this is gonna be easy. I'm gonna be friends with my kids. I'm gonna show them what's good, and
Yeah.
they're gonna see it because I'm just gonna explain it to them in a way they can understand. And then it just doesn't work out like that at all. You know, it's
I'm sure.
they're completely irrational because they're children. Like, and so then you resort to, like, you know, occasionally yelling at him. Like, so my son is like whatever 1, and he starts eating the cat food, and like, what do? Like, you yell at him like to scare him so he stops eating the cat food. You know, it's like, and you know, and then he doesn't do it, so you go over and you slap his hand, and then he starts crying, and you're like, well, at least I stopped him from eating the cat food. I don't know, I could have handled that better maybe, but like, I don't. Yeah, it's. I wish there was an instruction manual for kids, but.
I feel like there are several.
I don't know.
But they mostly contain things like CPR treatment.
Yeah, like how to change a diaper. It's valuable stuff. You need to know that. But
I can't imagine what that's like. I'm just totally.
Was it wet food or dry food?
it was wet food.
Oh, okay. I can see that. That stuff looks good sometimes in the commercial, you know? They put the little sprig of parsley on the side.
Fancy feet.
Yeah,
Fancy feast,
I go
yeah.
all out in my presentation for my cats, so maybe that's what drew my kids to. So, but yeah, I mean, there's definitely like times I've reacted with my kids where I'm not proud of it at all, and I think back, you know, and you just try and not do it in the future, you know. It's like you have these conceptions that you'll go into certain situations and act certain ways, and then you find yourself in the situation and you just don't act that way.
Yeah.
Like you're overwhelmed by your emotions and the stress, and
Of course.
yeah, there's a lot of that with having kids for sure.
Yeah, I feel like that with my bar staff sometimes, you know? Like, a lot of them are very green and...
Well, being in charge of people is the worst.
Yeah.
That's my least favorite thing about my job.
It's tough sometimes, you know, and try not to be forceful with people if you don't have to. It takes so much energy. That's the other thing. It's like being mad and like yelling or doing things like that. It's like, I don't need, like, I don't want that to be my default, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So.
How do you avoid yelling at employees or underlings, or what do you refer to them as?
It's my team, you know, like, those are, I wouldn't call them like my staff,
I don't know the technical terms for the food industry.
I think for me, it's like,
Okay.
for me, it's like, how do I want myself, like, there are times when emotions will boil over, and you do have to get a little, but I always regret yelling at people.
Yeah.
And I've found that, like, being direct and speaking to someone in very straightforward terms is more effective. But I have to do that at a different point in time. So if there's something that's like making me frustrated, I will show my frustration without yelling. I'll be like, this is a little fucked up, you know? But like 20 minutes later, I'll pull them aside and be like, you know why you fucked up here a little bit, you know? And that, I think, kind of, it's effective, I've found. But then, there's just some people that they have to be invested too. So if they're not, then...
Yeah, I have that. Deal with that a lot with my graduate students who do like the grading and stuff like that. It's it's just, I mean, it's tough when you're responsible for a bunch of stuff, and in order for you to achieve what you're expected to achieve, other people have to do their jobs, and then sometimes they just don't because they're not invested because they don't care, or And it can be very frustrating.
How do you fire a graduate student?
I have no authority to even dock their pay or do anything.
No?
And so I'm sort of resigned to it at this point. I used to get very frustrated because, like the grading would just not get done in time and this and that. And I would think that I could exert some control by like going through the department and trying to like get, little things filed, but it's just not. That's not what the whole system's set up to do where I'm at. So it's just like I've just accepted the fact that a lot of times my subordinates will just not do their jobs, and that's
just how the system
and
behaves.
that's just how it goes. It's like I just need to deal with the fact that I'm just going to be on riding a leaky ship that's not going in the right direction sometimes. And that's it. It's like it takes a while to.
Worst that can happen is that it affects someone's future.
Yeah. I mean,
who isn't involved.
Yeah, I mean, it's the students, and it doesn't really affect their future, but they do think it does. And so you get, and so it's, but because they're young, and so it's difficult for that reason.
Sure. That's good to hear. College. Did you go to college?
I did. I went to Columbia College Chicago, which could be a college or it could be a Ponzi scheme, depending on how you look at it.
My uncle taught there for like a couple semesters.
The audio, that department got a lot of resources. Film got a lot of resources there. I went there for writing and did not get a lot of resources, but we all paid the same tuition, which is interesting. I was like, they're just putting us in a little fucking room with old desks from like Mount Carmel High School that they repurposed. Why am I paying so much money for this? And like writing, it's tough to teach college kids how to write when they don't have a lot to draw on in terms of like interpersonal relationships and like an understanding of how the world works. Because I had a number of friends that were trying to like do these big things like right away, and I was like, after I graduated, I was like, I'm gonna put writing on the back burner for a while and go out and like see the world and try to gain more experiences and more of a perception of like the human condition before I even try to write something that would even be like a piece like that. And that was ages ago, and now I just mostly write training manuals and emails and shit like that. But I enjoyed
reasonable stuff.
I had some really great professors and I had some really awful ones. When I was, and I think they saw some promise in me because they would put me in higher level classes when I was a freshman and sophomore. But the head of the department used to come into the bar I worked at, and I got a little loose one night, and I was like, yeah, I don't think the method you guys teach over there is like all that good. And he was like, why? It's kind of like what I've devoted my life to. And I was like, well, like, and then he was doing a reading from like this book he was working on, this gentleman that will not be named, and I was sitting in the front row and I fell asleep. And I think I might have started snoring. So I was quickly on the outs. And they never promoted my work because my work was like not in line with their teaching method. So it wasn't like an example of their success. So it was like, all right, cool. Like I picked up some tricks here. I met some good people. I have some still professors that I try to keep in touch with.
So you said you write training manuals, but how do you write otherwise? I'm sure that's not 100% accurate.
What do you mean, like how do I write? Like,
do you keep any practice alive within the past 5 years?
I've tried to, like I had an idea for a screenplay, and I started to flesh out like character profiles, and I still have, it's like a pilot for a TV show, and I'd like to sit down and write it someday, but I need to start kind of documenting things, because I'm starting to like, those memories get further and further away. And
you gotta take notes and have something to refer back to.
I used to, when I was waiting tables, I worked in, the first place I worked was such a funny group of characters that I started bringing a journal in and just writing down funny things that would happen and funny things that people would say, whether it was a coworker or a guest. And I found that journal recently when I was moving a bunch of stuff around, and I was like, this is like, it brought so much back. And like the practice of journaling is something that I've tried to keep up, but I always just fall by the wayside. So, you know, I maybe like once a week, if I could do it, it'd be awesome. I think I really need to start doing it though.
It's a good daily practice. I did this morning.
Yeah.
I write 3 pages every day.
3 pages?
Yes.
What kind of pages? We're talking
They
about
started-
8.5 by 11?
They started as that,
yeah.
and now they're typed. So I write 3 pages at font 16. I don't know.
There you go.
Word.
Google Docs. I
Oh,
use.
Google Docs,
Just,
okay.
It's easy. I
Same-
have access
same
to it
difference.
everywhere. Yeah.
Sure.
And I think that gets me going.
Yeah.
That keeps me level in some ways, and it keeps me reminded of who I am.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually absolutely self-indulgent. It's usually unreadable, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And that's not the point.
But it's just for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The point of it is to get my thoughts out and
Yep.
to get me able to communicate in a way where when I actually talk with people, I'm probably a little bit better at communicating afterward.
Yeah.
So if that's the only benefit, that's enough. And that's not the only benefit. There are many others.
Yeah.
I wrote about how I'll approach this painting. I wrote about how I'll approach this day, and you know how I'll plan everything and how I'll edit episodes and whatever comes up comes up. But
Yeah, I remember you talking about this, and I think it was one of these episodes.
Yeah.
But yeah, the one thing that
really
struck me is
helpful.
like you said, you know, you would do it intermittently, and then you would just do nothing but complain.
Oh yeah.
And then when you're actually doing it every day, you can actually get past that. Because
Yeah.
I used to do it when I was younger, and that's what I would always do, was intermittently, and I would just always complain.
Oh
And
yeah.
just like write down everything
Yeah.
that was wrong for him.
Yeah.
So I stopped doing it, but yeah,
Yeah,
it made me
because-
think about trying to start again. So, but
I always do it when I travel. Like
Okay.
I'll start writing stuff down when I'm experiencing new places.
Mhm.
But for like me, the day-to-day stuff, there's so much monotony that I don't know. I just don't find myself motivated to do it. It's not like bad types of monotony. Like you go set up the bar every day. You know, you make sure the kegs are good. You make sure your garnish is right. You make sure there's ice in the thing. And then you go serve food and drinks for a couple hours. And there's really not a ton of like variation or like revelations from day to day that I feel like I need to record. But now I'm starting to second guess that.
yeah, I mean, I think that's it's not
small
really
stuff.
about recording your day. You know?
Yeah.
It's like it's about
Your thoughts and
Right.
yeah, your approach
Yeah.
to life
I
and
mean,
how you're thinking about things. Yeah.
Every 100 pages, you might have 2 sentences that are insightful enough for you to be like, I'm gonna remember this for the rest of my life.
yeah,
You know, and that's enough right there to make it worth it.
yeah.
Yeah, you're not trying to make a publishable book or something.
For
you know?
sure.
No, yeah, yeah.
It's cool.
I think it's really important, but
The Stoics were big on journaling, like Marcus Aurelius and stuff. They always
Yeah.
Cicero and stuff. Like,
That makes
it's not
sense.
Stoic, but- yeah, so
Um,
yeah, the ancients, but yeah, they really put
Could
a
they
lot of
write,
stock
or
in
did
that.
they have their slaves do it for them?
Oh no, they wrote themselves. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Don't think slaves were illiterate. Yeah.
Yeah.
they didn't
Not the
want
good
to be.
ones.
Yeah.
Not the expensive ones.
Actually, you know, you're right. There probably were expensive slaves that can.
Oh yeah.
It's like Siri.
Hey Siri. Their name's Siri.
Yeah.
That's what Siri's named after a famous slave.
That would be yeah.
One of the best slaves.
Okay, I found this on the web from Hey Siri's main DR famous singer. Check it out.
Unfortunately, not very good hearing on that slave.
You know, whipped about the head too many times. I guess.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Do you use Siri?
All the time.
Yeah.
To text when I'm driving, to do all sorts of stuff.
I can't get myself in the mode of like vocalizing to a computer when I'm.
You know, the hardest part about texting with Siri is saying and using
Punctuation.
the word exclamation point.
Yeah.
It's like trying to send a text and show someone you're excited about something and saying exclamation point.
I'm exclaiming.
It's very funny, especially if you're using the car's system for their. You have to enunciate twice as much, on that kind of.
Yeah, it's like, how are you doing? Period or question mark. You know, like I don't know. I'd rather just like not touch my phone while I'm driving. You use the voice
I have an
activated
Android,
stuff?
so I think it can do it, but it's like I've never bothered to figure it out. It does seem like it would be useful while I'm driving sometimes because I do want to send a text. But it's like usually I'm just like, well, I grew up in a world without text. Like they just wait till I get there.
I'm so conditioned to like.
Man.
I'm so conditioned to just grab the phone and like if I need to set an alarm, I just punch it in myself, or if I need to send a text, I just punch it in myself because. Like I have some friends that do like the voice to text when they're texting me. And it's like, dude, can you please stop doing that? Like it's
that's difficult.
Paragraph of stuff that's like, not entirely accurate to what they're saying. You got to translate a little bit of it.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant something else. There's another form of communication that a few friends of mine use,
Like the short.
Where they do voice recording.
Yeah.
Oh, they say the recording.
I wind up, in a public place where I can't put my phone up to my ear.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not going to listen to a 20 to 30 second audio recording of anything.
You just like
when I'm in a restaurant.
Yeah.
But if it's important enough to message and I can see it in text format, and it's like, it's reasonable to look down at a phone. To go like this is.
Well, yeah, especially when it's loud and stuff, and you have to like go around a corner or something.
Yeah.
So I actually need to use the restroom, but I don't know if you.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
No, you can do that if you want. Plenty of other things for me to paint while you are there. Okay. Let's talk about him while he's gone.
Yeah.
So neither of you has touched the puppet. I'm about to paint the puppet.
Oh, well, should we move him? Is this
He
a good
comes
angle?
from Jerome, Wisconsin. Yeah, I like his shadow and everything. Actually, that's pretty cool. He comes from Jerome, Wisconsin.
This is a Scotty puppet.
Or not Wisconsin, Jerome, Arizona.
I was gonna say.
Jerome, Wisconsin?
The sombrero is interesting for a Wisconsinite.
Yeah. Jerome, Arizona. So this was a ghost town that was converted into an artist compound. Hey, cut that out. I'm painting him right now. I know that you guys are moving as I'm painting you, but
the puppets, yeah.
The more I can avoid it.
Does he have a name? Does the puppet have a name? Whether it's a.
I thought it could be Jerome if we're sitting here and trying to come up with one, but it kind of doesn't.
He's got nice lips.
He's got a nice personality, but there's something about him that's just looks really funny to me. So I had to buy him, and I think a name would be wise, wouldn't it?
Jerome's
I've
a good
had him
name.
for all these years. I think Jerome is a decent name.
Yeah, I didn't want to. He looks very almost like fragile. So.
Right. Yeah.
Fragile Jerome.
After I finish painting him, he's fair game. If you want to take him off that brick and
Take him for a walk.
yeah, see how test his legs out. I've been watching this puppeteer and different puppet shows over the past few years that are really fun and entertaining to watch, where the puppeteer sings really beautiful songs that are meant to sort of soften the viewers, he says, and to keep people sensitive and not sort of preference the idea that as we go through life we should harden in order to make ourselves more resilient, but rather should continue to soften. He's Almighty Op is the name of his project. So I think it's 2 P's Op.
I like that.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. And he is not he is very, very underappreciated for the quality of what he's doing. It's very cool. Lucky to have found such a strange puppeteer.
What was the line again?
Which one?
You need to soften.
Oh, you just need to soften. Well, I'm paraphrasing this, and I'm just
Yeah.
talking about what he's trying to do. But you need to soften instead of trying to harden yourself as you go through life. You know, like continue to soften yourself, because you're not going to
You got to be like
attract
water,
anything but hateful or like brutal behavior in people.
Yep.
If you're just hardening yourself only.
Absolutely. I agree with that a
Hateful is the
lot.
wrong word, but I think you understand what I mean.
I think, that as much as it's probably cliche to say, like the pandemic kind of changed my outlook on things. It was like what really matters and what is just like transitory, kind of just things you go through. And for me, I feel like more at ease with the world, even though things are, they don't seem to be in a great trajectory, but it's like, at the end of the day, I'm just one man, and like I'm just rolling through it, Let's see where it takes me.
Yeah, hopefully somewhere that's kind to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's so easy when you're like young to think that you're really going to do something that's really just going to alter the trajectory of the world.
Yeah,
whatever it is, be the greatest, physicist that ever was, or the greatest artist that ever was.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we probably all have had thoughts along those lines.
like
When you're a
grandiose.
teenager.
Right.
Well,
Or a couple days ago.
Oh
Or,
wow. It's good to see you learn
Thanks for
humility.
dashing my hopes. But
well,
I
I
was
was looking through the questions you
sometimes
sent.
people come through your home and dash your dreams.
That's what I'm here for, man. That's why you bring me. If I had $1 for every dream I destroyed.
Well, those are the questions you sent. It was like would you want to be famous, And there was a point in my life where I did,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think that way anymore. I don't think those types of things are important, and I'd also think like being famous would be miserable.
Yeah, I would hate being famous.
Yeah.
It's like I would love to be able to do a great accomplishment that would, change the world in a better place, but I just don't want people to notice me for it.
Yeah, I want to be
That sounds
recognized
like
in
it.
public.
Yeah,
Uh-oh.
that sounds awful.
Do you want to be famous?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Why am I making a podcast? Must want something.
Do you consider it a podcast? Because there's like a video element.
Well,
Is it?
let's call it a podcast because I haven't come up with a better word for it yet.
Yeah.
Cult?
Cult's good.
Sure.
Yeah. There's no connotations with that either.
No.
It's pretty. People love that word.
Yes, I think so. But it is funny. I mean, as an artist, you need a certain level of notoriety in order to warrant a kind of price point that allows you to be anything other than homeless or
Yeah. Yeah.
employed under someone else's intentions for the rest of your life. So I think that there's an element of that that's going to stay alive. I have to keep some kind of...
So is it like being famous, or is it just
Dream.
not having to work?
I don't think fame is the word. I think, not having to work for someone else would be the object.
Yeah.
So this is... I want my art career to sustain my life, and I don't know a way to do that where, I can avoid becoming an egotist. I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to find a way around the egomaniacal artist life path.
Mm-hmm.
It's a shitty life
Yeah.
to be like that. It's shitty to others. It's shitty, like being shitty to others. Having your life co-opted also.
Mm-hmm.
To sort of purvey other people's messages if your work isn't in line with I don't know, whatever crowd is attacking you at any given moment.
Yeah.
So I think you have a lot of possible paths you could go down, and trying to find a clever way where you can be of use to the world you live in without having to be in the medical field
Yeah.
is going to be the route that I'm seeking. Like, I don't know what that's going to look like.
Yeah, it's a much different thing, being an artist than like being, whatever, a bartender or something. Like you're both, creating things for people to use in their leisure time, but nevertheless, just in our culture, it's like everyone is going to go to a bar and buy a drink, and very few people are going to buy paintings. It's just not.
I mean, they will talk about liking paintings.
Yeah.
And they will do it on their dating profiles.
Is that right?
I haven't had one in years. But I think art is my life is a common sort of sentiment, just like music is my life is a common sentiment that you see among people who work in offices.
Yeah.
And they meet a musician or an artist, and they're just so utterly repulsed by their lifestyle, by their ideas, by their personality. They're just disgusted by the people who are doing the things that they identify the most with their personality. My personality hinges on my interests, and my interests happen to be art and music, and I love art, and art shows so much, and they treat artists worse than they treat gas station attendants. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I think that, I'm not sure where I'm going with this rant, but we have a different position that we live life from, I don't know, than a lot of people realize.
Yeah.
And we don't deserve for quarters to be thrown at us or something. It's not like we're pitiable creatures or something. We're not subhuman.
Oh yeah. No.
So it's like, I'm trying to figure out,
Well, it's like if
way to
people could
interact?
spend, 10% of what they spend on drinks at bars on art,
Yes.
like artists would be doing a lot better.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, I think a lot of people who claim to love art so much are probably not buying a lot of paintings.
No way.
It's
Well, it's like, I think art is so important to.
I sound so angry when I talk about that. It doesn't matter.
Like, I think art is it's necessary. It's absolutely necessary, and it's like it's part of what makes a community or a culture like more well-rounded and thought-provoking, and like to just use it as some sort of like consumable. It's like missing the big picture of it, like things that are created to me are like the most fascinating things to me. It's like somebody just like I have a cousin who's a great artist, and I would always just like look at a blank page and be like, how did he fucking pull this out of a blank canvas? Like I can't, my brain cannot do that. Like,
me neither.
I can try to, I can draw like 3 things, like you draw like a cartoon Jerry Garcia.
Really?
I used to be able to draw like a Beavis and Butthead, like all the things you learn, but like it was just like came so natural to be able to envision something and then express it. Like that's so valuable, and the way that we kind of disregard it unless it's like providing. It's like either a commodity or something that can be like immediately consumed. It's strange to me. Or it's like, once this person's dead and gone and like they're part of history, then that's when it becomes valuable. It's like, no, I think like
I'm not doing this for my family.
Walking down the street and seeing like street art and
it has nothing to do with my family.
seeing how people express themselves.
That would be the artist who's okay with that concept,
Yeah.
It's like, it's my family, I'll leave it for them. I'll leave all of my art in their names. It'll go to them when I die.
It seems there's probably some businessman who's like scooping it up cheap and then like creating the life story of this person.
Speculation.
And then all of a sudden it's selling for 20 times what it ever did. Yeah.
Ideally, yeah.
I don't know. I think it's just so necessary to just like to have as part of the human experience.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that we look at it is a little bit skewed, it's formed by this art culture. It's like this is the most important thing for me. Like you can look at cooking as art. You could look at anything is art. Really, it's human expression, and that's the most important thing, I think, for all of us. Then that it gets lost so much. It's like, whoa, is it providing value? Is it of course it's providing value. You know.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
broad-
it
the
is
broad
a
sense.
luxury. You know, it's easy to lose sight of. You know, like
Oh, yeah.
if you're living in Ukraine on the front lines, you know, probably there's more important things to worry about than art.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
so-
Well, absolutely.
You
But
know, it's.
yeah.
But yeah, for once you've gotten past that, you've got your necessities settled. Like then you can start to worry about more valuable things.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. We got to get our necessities settled, guys. So it's the name of the
working on
game.
that. How do you plan on getting your necessities settled?
Oh yeah, I work for a university, so I've got a steady paycheck. So
That's good.
it's my big necessity that I'm missing out on is time. You know, it's like job
Yeah.
takes a lot of time, and then there's all the stuff I want to do, and there's never enough time for it. You know,
Mhm.
especially after you have kids. You know, you're always juggling 100 things. So, but tonight I get to role play over Zoom. I'm very excited about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love role playing games. I
Nice.
got back into them over the pandemic. I used to
Which
do a lot when I was younger.
game?
So my favorite game is GURPS. So that's the one I
Okay.
run. But tonight we're playing L5R, which I'm not as big of a fan of.
Can you
It's like
tell?
sort of-
Yeah, we'll have to know what that's.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of like Dungeons and Dragons, but just set in. It's like a sort of pseudo Asian setting. So like sort of
Okay.
meshes elements of like feudal Japan and like ancient China.
Mhm.
And so that setting, I actually find it hard to roleplay in. You know, it's like for me, I kind of want to do like sort of a slapstick medieval comedy. Like that's
Mhm.
my like go-to role playing place where like I'm most
Yeah.
comfortable. And so doing it in the Asian culture can be a little challenging because you always have to say, like refer to people with the san on the end.
Do you
of
do
the name.
accents?
Oh,
No. Actually, that's
Everybody sit down and try to dust
made
off
one
their
word.
Asian accents.
yeah. That's
so is this like is it digitized like board or
No. So it's all theater of the mind stuff. So it's
Okay.
like the computer keeps track of our character sheets, so we can keep track of like hit points and die rolls and stuff on the computer. But
Yeah.
when I'll roll, But actually like try and draw out a map and stuff. So like,
Mhm.
just for tactical combat, it doesn't look great, but at least people know where their characters are when they're shooting each other. Or
Yeah.
whatever. But for the most part, it's just you describe it and then people see what
Interesting.
they're doing. Yeah, the last one I ran was like a Harry Potter little adventure.
Oh, wow.
So it was a lot of fun. And I ended up kicking the bad guy in the nuts repeatedly at the end and keep him on the ground, and a train almost ran him over. So
I guess I grew up doing that with you, huh?
Mhm.
It's more so my brother.
Yeah, I don't think we
But I
ever
would
actually
play
played in the same
pretty
game.
rarely. I played very rarely.
I only actually played with your brother once. Yeah, so he
Really?
played the game. Yeah,
Crazy, I didn't know that.
I know. I played with Sean all the time, who played with
Yeah,
and Johnny
you
Green
still
and
do,
stuff.
yeah.
But yeah, so yeah. But yeah, it's a super
Well,
fun
it's
game
fun
to
stuff.
play. Yeah, it's much different than like sitting around at a video game where it's like the computer's doing all the work and you're just reacting to it. Where you actually have to take the active role and like actually make the story
Mhm.
up yourselves.
It's good imagination work.
Yeah, it's fun. You watch kids doing that all the time. Like my son and daughter, like they're always just making up random stuff and like,
Yeah.
making little tree houses in the backyard and making up games and.
Oh yeah, so effortlessly, right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
it's like unbridled imagination,
Mhm.
like as you get older it's you're like, that's not realistic to imagine. And then it's like, why am I
I know. Yeah, you put all these extra constraints on yourself in your
Yeah.
imaginations when you get older, like that you just don't have when you're younger. It makes it so much harder.
they're talking about imagination, just let it go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's people who say like the most valuable art is like it has to be constrained to have value. If you let art just be whatever it is, imagination or whatnot, if it's completely unconstrained, then it's just there's no value to it. Like it has to.
Yeah.
The constraint is where you get like a lot of the richness from.
Uh-huh.
Is working within constraints.
I stand by that.
Yeah, Nietzsche was a big proponent of that idea. So you guys read Nietzsche at all?
Not since college.
Yeah, okay.
Not since college. I honestly haven't done too much philosophy in general since college. But my old man was a philosophy major, so I
Oh,
get
really?
it like through osmosis
Okay.
and just his general disposition. But yeah, I haven't really. I I don't revisit a lot of stuff. I probably should now because I feel like it'd be more valuable. Like when you're in school as a kid,
Yeah.
even like 20 years old, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You know, you're like, oh, like
yeah,
this
for
is
sure.
the idea of this, and
I mean, I never appreciated Nietzsche at all until my dad died. And, like, you know, Nietzsche, one of his big things is, you know, it's like, you know, modern society is basically just trying to make a nice, comfortable, pain-free world that everyone can just sort of live in and be kind of content. And he's like, that's awful. Like,
Yeah.
I imagine that world, like, that's just a world of people essentially just sitting on couches watching TV all day. He's
Yep.
like, I don't want to live in that world. Like, I want to live in a world where people are undergoing sacrifices to make great things, you know? And it's, it didn't really speak to me until after my dad died. And, you know, like, when you're in that period of grief, like, you're just incapable of feeling happiness and joy for extended periods of time, and you have to come up with a justification for life that doesn't rely on happiness.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, and you have to realize that life has value even when there is no joy, even when there is no happiness.
yeah. Well, kind of going off that, like I think when I was in those like formative stages and exploring like different philosophers and stuff, and also like kind of challenging the Catholicism background. Something that always really spoke to me was Buddhism and the principles of Buddhism, where they say like all life is suffering, or you know, like the idea that like death is inevitable and like you should be ready for death at any moment. I thought those were fascinating principles, and I'm sure I'm like way off on the exact verbiage.
yeah,
It's been so long since I read this
Down
stuff,
somewhere.
but it's such an interesting concept. Like you can't have the highs without the lows type thing, you know, and there have to be those points where you're like you really question things that make you kind of constantly grateful for just having the experience, you know, like it's part of it, and it's gonna happen, so
Hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, not all suffering is meaningful, but there's definitely a lot of meaningful like experiences that are painful.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's true, I think. How we deal with them is kind of what defines us, right? That's a nice cliche.
Yeah.
I think it's true. How are you with conflict?
Conflict?
Yeah.
I don't know. I can be very intense in those situations, and going back to like the yelling thing, I feel like it can bring out the worst of me, and this is like kind of what I'm trying to get away from. So it's trying to be like more formless in those scenarios where I can try to separate my emotions and be a little bit more rational, a little bit more empathetic.
Okay.
But I still I'm passionate about things because I'm, empathetic with the larger picture, and if people are behaving in a way that, is adversely affecting people around me, then I usually will kind of take that up upon myself to be like the guy who stands up and says something. Just gotten me in a lot of trouble in my career, but I don't really regret any of it. I just regret the way I went about it. I think I could have been more empathetic with the opposing view, and that's something
Which is what?
What do you mean? Like in a general conflict,
Okay.
just to be like, this is how I feel, this is how it should be, this is very finite in my mind, but then starting to realize that my experience isn't, absolute, and it's important to really kind of try to empathize. I think empathy is one of the most challenging things in life.
Right. Well, you can't spell empathetic without.
Pathetic.
Yeah. I was gonna say emp. But all right.
Yeah, I avoid conflict whenever I can. It's just
Yeah.
it's not like that's not my rational approach to things. It's just that if I see conflict and I can avoid it, I just usually do. It's just my gut.
Well,
reaction.
pathetic used to be a compliment, right? Not a compliment, maybe, but
Well, pathos,
positive
very
thing.
emotionally
used to be-
charged. Yeah.
its root is a little bit, less negative than how we see it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I prefer to avoid it for sure, and I've learned that's from experience of like just like going right into it and being like, oh, I just created just a bigger shitstorm for myself.
I've had to like learn to actually like lean into conflict, and it's like, okay, it's like if you run away from this now,
Yeah.
it's gonna create more problems in the future, and you just got to go into it. And so I have to like psych myself up a little bit and be like, all right, this is not gonna be pleasant, but you gotta.
Relationships demand it, right? Human relationships.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I think I've gotten to a point where like I can start removing the emotions out of it, which took me a very long time.
Oh, you're doing better than me then.
But yeah, I mean, I still deal with it, my natural kind of reaction is to try to steamroll the other party, whether it's whatever, through logic or intimidation or whatever it may be. And it's like, I don't like being that person. I don't think that's like a healthy exercise of energy.
That's common though, right?
Oh yeah. I think that's kind of how we're
being
conditioned to do it, and it's like you see it. I mean, I know we said like try to avoid politics, but the way that people just draw a line, and it's like you're either on the right team or the wrong team. It's for me, it's like you're missing a ton of nuance.
Yeah, people are very tribal, It's like you really want to say things that people and like are gonna. Like you for saying it, it's very difficult to like.
I agree 100%.
Thanks.
I upvote this.
It's exactly what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Good job.
like, smash that like button. And there's a lot of like, there's like people like watching that. People like watching two parties in conflict and picking a side. And being like, well, this is my guy, and this is, fuck the other guy. Yeah. It's like, there should be the goal should be to meet in the middle. And I think that gets lost a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of willful misunderstanding of people, like you hear someone say something and you immediately construct that they're like the worst people and they're doing things for the worst reasons.
Yeah.
Like, probably a bad idea to go here, but like with the abortion debate, it's like if you're, on either side, so let me just take like the pro-choice side because that's my side. Like, it's very easy to say, oh, if you're pro-life, you want to just control women and take us back to the Middle Ages and like you have no respect for a woman's body. And it's like, well, probably a lot of those people, they just think of a fetus as a baby and they just want to save babies' lives.
Yeah.
Like, and that's understandable. No one really wants to kill babies.
Yeah.
Like, well, some people, there's, I know there's some people. The Greeks were big on infanticide, but, but it's just hard to, if you're pro-choice, you're mad at pro-life people for wanting to restrict, like what you think should be free. And so you want to demonize those people and think that they're awful when you can kind of empathize with, oh, okay, I guess they want to save babies, but people don't want to really meet.
Yeah.
To see them as being more human like that,
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Your viewership here by going into that discussion.
Yeah, that doesn't matter.
Yeah,
my wife got furious with
comments,
me for basically taking that position. Like I am pro-choice. I 100% think the law should like allow for abortion. But nevertheless, I can see why people would be pro-life and like just that.
It's not hard to draw a logical line to depending on where your logic stops. So it's not hard to see how people are viewing that as drawing a logical line is the better way to phrase that. I think that some people will think ending a process that could result in another thing, such as a human life,
Yeah, see, I don't think pro-life people look at it. It's not like a process.
I don't have
People
any-
who are
I don't have
anti-contraception, I have no idea.
It's not hard. It's not hard to see how some people could come to that conclusion. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, well, you
Like,
just think of fetus
it's
as
like
a baby.
yeah.
Look at it, it kind of
Where
looks like
you
a
go
baby.
with that, you kind of just let it happen. This is what happens. You stop that. This doesn't happen. It's like not everyone thinks in such complex ways where we think about human rights and we think about a person's ability to make a choice that would result in possibly their life ending, possibly with their dream life ending, possibly with whatever it is. It's very easy to understand where people are coming from, wherever they're coming from on that topic. It's pretty intense.
Yeah, for sure.
It's very easy to be polarized on that.
It's like kind of like shifting that slightly, just a little bit.
You can edit this out. Sorry.
Yeah.
So racism next?
Kill all babies.
Yeah, let's go to racism next.
So
Right, what do you think,
to
Michael,
give like
about that?
a personal like,
Yeah.
this is maybe like what Trump was elected in 2016, and it just like hypercharged everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember at that point in time, I would go on Facebook and I would just troll the shit out of Trump supporters.
Oh yeah.
And just fucking get up their ass and be like, all this dumb shit. And I was like,
Way to make it safe again.
I was, well,
I'm sure you
here,
changed a lot of
like,
minds.
here's where
more oxygen.
well, that was the thing. Like, I was just fucking I was working
Yeah.
myself up.
Mhm.
Oh, I get it. Yeah.
I was not doing anything to like look across to the other side and see like what were the conditions that would cause someone to feel opposite of my feelings about this whole scenario.
Mhm.
And then I was like, this is a fucking waste. And like, you need to be like, why are people angry? They're angry for, because they're suffering in some sort of way.
Yeah.
And how do you acknowledge that without creating a greater rift? And that's kind of like where it shifted for me. It was like, I'm still like outspoken in my beliefs, but when someone shows up and they start talking their things and they're opposite to mine, it's like I'm in a different place now where like at first I would just be like, fuck you, you're a moron, like go read a book or some shit like that. And and like now it's like, okay, I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah,
I disagree with you, and here's why. But like, is this even worth my energy to engage with this person, or are they just gonna, are they just in that mode where they're just gonna keep chipping away at like these, like shouting slogans at one another?
Man.
It's like that's just exhausting, and it's not fun for everybody. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of lucky in a way that I've had, I lived in North Carolina and I made a lot of really good friends, like, whose opinions I respect, who I know are intelligent people and, like, are acting in good faith. They're not cynical, like, and, and they disagree with me, they're on the right side of the political spectrum. And, it's like, I have to look at that as, like, a valid opinion, like, I respect these people and I respect their opinion. So it's like, even though I disagree with them, it's like... Yeah. And people are losing that, as people like retreat into their tribes, you don't want to be friends with someone because they have a different opinion.
They're all playing this little game, and it's like, I don't want to play that game anymore. I want to talk about why we're all angry, like that's the bigger thing for me. Like everybody's angry, but nobody's really articulating anything. They're just like regurgitating these phrases and these ideas that they're being conditioned to say, and it's like, let's kind of step back and like really look in the mirror at this and like understand that we're all human beings, and like all we really want is for things to be better.
You should run for city council.
Not in Chicago. Not after all the drug talk.
I know, yeah. We're in a t-shirt.
I've thought about that, and it's like that
really
goes back to like, well, just
office,
in general, like that goes back to like, do you want to be famous type thing, like that is a fucking shit show, like of exposing yourself and opening yourself up to like,
well, Chicago politics especially, like, there's,
you
I
might lose
worked
your
for
life.
a union for a little while, and like there were like the super progressive people, like don't get along with a lot of the more mainstream Chicago politicians, and so they were trying to like run a really progressive candidate, and like Daley's machine like came around with baseball bats and just fucked up their car, just like beat the shit out of it, broke all the glass, all the lights, and like it's like, does this really happen? I mean, it was 21st century. It's like, are people really doing this? Like, you're gonna run a competing candidate and they're gonna come around with baseball bats? Like, it was just.
I am at odds with Chicago in a lot of ways, but this is still home for me, and it is the furthest thing from a progressive city. It is a meat grinder. That is always how I phrase Chicago. It's like it grinds people up one way or the other, the city usually wins.
Jesus,
Right? You like that?
This is getting grim, this conversation, guys. I gotta say.
Yeah.
Can we bring it back to like sex or something?
It's weird driving around this neighborhood. I lived around
Yeah.
here, like 15, 16 years ago, something like that. And it's mostly the same, but like the corner I lived on, the gas station's gone. There's like a bank there and stuff. And
Yeah.
you can see like a little bit of gentrification with some fancy condos and stuff
Sure.
around. And it's, but the Rainbow Club's still there. So
Yes, that is
There you go.
persisted.
Rainbow forever.
They still have a photo booth. That's nice.
Okay, do you still go over there sometimes?
Rarely, but more than most other places. Is that true? Kind of.
Do you go out a lot?
No.
Yeah.
I find that it's a waste of resources at this point.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to do anything out there.
I find it less enjoyable. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just my disposition after the pandemic and everything, but I don't find myself wanting to go out and like
Not,
participate in nightlife like I used to.
yeah, not the bars and things.
Yeah.
I know how fruitless it is, and I know that if I were looking for fruit in the first place, that's the last place to find it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you might occasionally find like some diamond in the rough, and you're like, oh, this diamond's covered in fecal matter. It's got so much fecal matter on it, all around it, like completely surrounding it. It's like it lives in absolute. It's like got entrails, like kind of trailing behind it that don't belong to it. Like it's just like.
Yeah, I used to go to bars so much in the
If
city.
you get the
but yeah,
picture,
you very rarely like meet new people,
No.
You can go out with your friends and you hang out with your friends and try to be friends, and then occasionally you'll talk to a few people here and there. But
Yeah.
it's not. It was never, for me at least, a good place to like meet people.
Oh, it's I go out and
a
it's,
lot of people. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, you
I
did?
just put in a lot of time, and you
Yeah.
know, for what I've taken from that time, it's like
it's a lot of surface level relationships.
yeah.
Probably not as bad as LA, but it's a lot of like these people that you would see out and you'll give them a hug and everything will be hunky dory, but then if it's like a weekday and you want to grab lunch with that person, they're like, I don't know, like we're not hanging out at a club doing drugs, so I don't have a context for you as like a daytime friend or whatever. So that was the part that I started to see, like, who are the people that are your actual friends and your little tribe, and then who are the people that are just kind of passing through. And it's not
What did
necessarily.
you figure out?
A lot of it's unimportant, and a lot of it's a lot of bullshit. I mean, I'm sure it's kind of similar to your.
Went through that.
Yeah, it's I
So much
value.
energy. I put so much energy into that.
I try to bring people together. I think it's an important characteristic for a good bartender to bring people together, to introduce like-minded parties that may not know each other.
Yeah.
But also, like, I will make the effort to reach out, like, to group people don't really talk to each other
You were
anymore.
gonna say to separate people.
No, like I'll sometimes, yeah. Sometimes you have to.
Some people could use it, yeah.
But I
I
regularly,
really don't think that you should be together right now.
yeah. Both
I'm
of
gonna
you.
stop serving both
The
of
fuck,
you.
I can tell this day's not going well. This day's not going well. You're fucking with the entire vibe of my bar. You're bringing everybody down around you, and that does happen. Like
Yeah.
you can tell, like even like working at the restaurant, and you're waiting on a couple that doesn't like each other, and they're out to dinner, and it's like, and you're in a celebratory environment, and there's two people that are just like angry, like you're fucking everything up for everybody else. Like
I've done that before. I didn't realize we were screwing up the whole restaurant.
Well, it can. Like if it gets out of hand, and like like we at the restaurant I'm at now, we pack people in there. It's a small space, so you're sitting almost elbows to the party next to you, so you're overhearing what everyone's talking about, and trying to get we're here to show you a good time, and like it's like pulling teeth sometimes with these people. It's like, why did you come in? Like you're clearly both having a bad time, and it's nothing to do with like what we're putting in front of you. It's you're like not happy with each other, and that's like that's a big one, you know. But getting back to what you were asking, like I try to make an effort to, you know, have like little groups of friends that I know from different projects we worked on, or like friends from high school, and I try to make an effort to get those people together once in a while so we can like be face to face. And
So with your friends, like, have you been friends for like since high school, or is it mostly people you met like from work, or?
oh, there's all different like segments. Yeah, it's a lot of work friends, a lot of like just, you know, people that are like, they really care about each other, but they're never in the same place at the same time unless somebody like proposes like, hey, let's do something. You know, it's been a year. Let's go grab dinner or something. You know, let's sit around a table and look at each other and be like, hey, how's it fucking going? You know, and like,
Yeah, after the pandemic just messed with that for so many people.
Oh, yeah.
So much.
yeah, I was doing like I would get drunk on webcam with my buddy in LA because we were both like stuck in our 1-bedroom apartments, and it was like, you know, what are you gonna do? How are you gonna keep that connection going?
Yeah, I tried that Zoom drinking thing a couple times, and I don't know. It's just it's just too easy with the bottle of whiskey right next to you,
Yeah.
like to just drink a little too much.
It goes off the rails real fast.
It's
I was
like there's
so
better pacing in a bar. You know?
at the beginning of the pandemic, I was living in Boys Town, renting a 2-bedroom apartment from a friend of mine that was like fully furnished. I didn't have any furniture. I got rid of all my shit prior to that, and it was just me. So he's like, "Here's a 2-bedroom. You got the whole place to yourself." And he's a pretty like successful brand rep and liquor rep. So he's been working in the booze industry for a long time. So the entire like living area of the apartment was shelves and shelves and shelves of alcohol. And he was like, "Just don't drink anything with a handwritten label." And I was like, all right, dude. Like the first 2 months of the pandemic, I was in complete like solo isolation, just powering through bottle after bottle. I started with the vodka, ended up on the scotch. It was not healthy at all. I mean, it was just coping at that point.
Yeah.
And that was probably the right and the wrong environment to be in for it, but it was just like pretty funny. That's how it happened. But yeah, we were just, you know, get the FaceTime and be like, hey, it's 2 p.m, world's still shut down, let's have a drink. Like, oh, okay, great. I'm gonna drop acid too. See where the night takes me.
Yeah, I think I was.
So I think I'm finishing this here. But we can drop some acid, you know, immediately after.
Hell yeah.
There might be so many drinks already. I may have timed this perfectly. It's not an accident.
Nice. That's why everything's starting to wiggle a little bit.
Yeah. Gotcha. Another one. Successful episode.
This is not actually the show painting everybody.
Yeah.
It's just,
Luring everybody.
Dude, gummy bears are great with the wine, by the way.
Oh yeah, I love them with champagne. That's kind of that's a secret, white trash secret of mine.
The other bottle I have in there for you is like a lightly effervescent.
Okay.
Really good. Enjoy that on your own time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll leave all this.
Wow.
Yeah.
I will consume it.
It's fucking delicious. It's like lemon peel. Lemon peel in a glass.
So, are we gonna get to see it now, or not quite yet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if I don't stop now, I'm just gonna totally ruin all my good work, you know.
We'll take
Kind of the
a
way these go. At this scale,
How do you know when to
I'm
stop?
painting a head that's this
Yeah,
small,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I actually dislike that. I think I should probably make these bigger, and
Okay.
I'll probably do that in the future.
How do you know when to stop?
When I get angry.
No, sorry.
Do you look at like
Yeah.
the works you have on the walls, and you ever look at them and be like,
Is it as good as that?
not quite finished?
I'm sure I will someday, but I think that my intention here is to finish these to a point where I've blocked them in. I've established that this is, these people are taking up space. No offense.
Well, I mean, like for any work, not just like
But
this.
I mean, within the environment. Within the environment, you can see that they actually, they're physically existing in that space. I've been as broad as I can be with the brushwork and with describing the forms. You're both kind of stoic in this. You both look a little bit contemplative, like you're. You don't look sad. You just look like you're here.
That's good.
All right. So with that, I'm going to say let's switch seats and see if we enjoy the way that feels. Okay.
So we get up now?
Yes.
Yeah, let's check it out.
I'm gonna move these things. No, I'm not. Just you can see that you're on the frame, where you are in the frame. And I'm gonna eat some gummy bears.
There you go.
Oh wow. Mmm.
See, look at your shirt. I should have worn a better shirt.
You?
There's one for the black.
No, solid. There's enough going on in the picture that's solid color. Things like that are kind of a break for me sometimes. So it's helpful for the composition.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. It's cool. I've never seen an oil painting that's still wet, It's
No?
like the way it glistens, it's like, I'm like, oh.
Yeah,
So-
quite a lot. I think.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I drank just the right amount.
A little wine
Wine.
decanter in there.
Thanks for bringing that.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was a
Of
good,
course.
good touch.
It feels good to stand up right now.
Yeah, both have the same light position.
Yeah.
Great minds think alike.
Great minds.
Great minds. I'm painting everybody.
Very cool, man. Very cool.
Yeah, I think it's. I'm satisfied with it. Everything looks solid. Nothing looks like crazy. Like neither of your heads are too big or anything like that. You know what I mean?
I like the puppet, man.
I have my own sets of judgments when I make things like this, of course. So I'm
Well, you
looking,
see
I'm looking
so
at
much
what's
more than
correct
we do.
and what's
Yeah.
not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm seeing how I did. How much I managed to fit into that time frame. I think it worked out.
Very cool. Do we go long or?
A little, but I'm
Yeah.
gonna cut.
Yeah,
part-
some of the technical difficulties.
Yeah.
See this way.
It's light reflection.
It's very cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, I'm super
it
happy
is
to
shiny,
be a
right?
part of it.
Yeah, from this angle, it's like, it's hard to
Oh,
see.
yeah.
Alright, you switch.
All right. So, on painting everybody, we learn things about everybody, and we learn nothing about ourselves.
Rolling.
see the trick door now.
I
You
know.
fell for the bit.
We figured it out. Oh, that's nice out.
Yeah, I know, yeah, it got a little hot in there.
A little steamy.
Look at this. Look at this. It's Cake Pete.
I brought donuts for some reason.
Wowzer.
I don't know
Donuts.
why. I just felt I was feeling donuts.
Donuts work.
So, there we are.
I wish someone
We brought some wine.
These two are on their way out.
Michael.
Nice to meet you. Yeah.
Yeah, we finished their episode. Ran late with some technical difficulties, but we're ready for
You all survived.
we're ready for ours.
Okay. Just when you need technology to work, it fails on you.